The Pickle arc was indeed peak. Baki has had a lot of great arcs, but even coming into the series not knowing anything about it, this was the arc that I had always heard about. I just knew it was gonna be different. Our story starts off with Baki doing some training while Gary is watching in the room. Gary came to talk to Baki because he wants him to meet somebody. Baki doesn't know who, but Gary just says that this person is the type that Baki's never met before. Baki's not really buying it because at this point, he's met all type of fighters that there is to meet. Everybody claims to be different, but they just end up being the same as always. But Gary is insisting that this one is gonna shock him. He asks Baki one simple question: what is the most powerful animal in history? Hearing this line of questioning, Baki is even more confused, but he just answers Yujiro Hanma. Is that what you wanted me to say? The strongest in the world. But Gary clarifies, not the strongest on Earth, but the strongest animal in history. Baki's giving these different answers. Maybe a lion, a Siberian tiger, and he don't know. He's not taking this too seriously, but Gary hasn't eased up in tension at all. He tells Baki that dinosaurs are the most powerful in history. Now, on to the next question. What's the most powerful dinosaur in history? Baki has no clue why he's giving him all this animal trivia. He doesn't care. But he just says a T-Rex, probably the most strongest. And as soon as he says that, Gary slams a newspaper down right in front of him. Looking at it, Baki's a little bit confused because this newspaper is in English and he can't read English too well. But he just sees the title up at the top, Man or Beast, and Baki is immediately intrigued. Real quick, don't forget to like the video, bro. What did you do? Like the vid, subscribe. Y'all know what to do. Gary explains that this is a man stronger than a T-Rex. He is the most powerful beast in history. Flashback to where the last season ended. A group of these miners out in Colorado had just found this very interesting scene buried deep underground. They see a man in the middle of a fight with a Tyrannosaurus Rex. At first, they couldn't believe how well this scene was preserved. These things are right here in perfect quality. They haven't degraded, they haven't moved, it was in the middle of an action scene. But looking closer, they come to the realization that this human, who they didn't even expect to exist back in this Jurassic era, is fighting this dinosaur and winning. He's not the prey, but the predator. They immediately dig up the bodies and bring them to this science center to be researched. The lead scientist is named Albert Payne, and he's extremely grateful to be the one that they came to with this finding. He instantly sets one thing to be clear: this news must not be made public. Doing so would just cause a riot, so they gotta be real methodical when it comes to releasing information on the situation. Out the side, this dingy looking blonde dude with glasses asks Professor Payne if they're gonna revive him, but Payne shuts it down immediately. They can't just decide to revive him like it's nothing, though the group does play around with the idea of doing so. Payne thinks back to this group of miners in New Mexico who had found this drop of water preserved in salt. As they brought it to a different science center, the lead over there managed to extract it and find that it was seawater from over 200 million years ago, and the bacteria within that water had been preserved perfectly. The scientists proceeded to foster the proper conditions in which they could survive in, and was able to revive each and every one of them in the span of just 4 months. Though they were encased in that salt for hundreds of millions of years, they managed to survive. Though Payne explains that they weren't exactly alive during the process of the preservation, but more in a state of neither life nor death, waiting for a period until the right, or technically wrong, conditions were met. But Alan, the dingy looking dude, is like, oh, alright, bet, so we can bring him back to life. And Payne is starting to get fed up with him taking this so lightly. But Alan brings up a good point. The scientists out in New Mexico were able to bring those bacteria back to life. So in theory, with the right conditions, bringing this human back to life is technically possible. And as scientists, they all can't help but be intrigued. So even though it's probably not the right thing to do, the restoration project for this ancient man begins. Now they give this man the name Pickle because he was pickled and preserved. Kind of a whack name, but it is what it is. Pickle. He's hooked up to all type of equipment inside of this tub of liquid, as it's been 90 days since this revival project has been started, but nothing has woken Pickle up so far. They've adjusted the temperature of the lab to match his Jurassic living conditions. They use these electromagnetic attachments on his body to match this basic living cadence, and this fluid is supposed to closely resemble his bodily fluids, but Alan is disappointed that nothing has worked so far. He dubs this project a failure. Back in his office, he's looking at this swimsuit magazine munching on a little Snickers, but he has this craving for steak, and suddenly he gets an idea. He drops his magazine on the ground, running back to the test site, saying that he'll be the first human in history to eat a T-Rex. Over with Professor Payne, he's analyzing this tissue found in Pickle's stomach, and his findings serve as undeniable evidence that Pickle was indeed the predator in this situation. Those assumptions could have been made since they were preserved in the middle of their fight, but seeing the dinosaur tissue inside of Pickle's stomach proves it. Over with Alan, he's got this piece of this T-Rex on a skillet. He's telling himself that since he only took a few ounces, nobody's really gonna notice. That thing weighs over 10 tons, so it shouldn't be a problem. But of course, it will be. While Professor Payne or any of the other scientists didn't notice, the scent made its way over to Pickle, and the familiar scent of his prey makes him open his eye. Alan starts going to town on this steak, not exactly sure how to describe the taste of it. Not quite like beef, it's a little bit similar to lamb or even whale, which he tried overseas one time, but nonetheless, he says it's actually pretty good. And as we take a look at Pickle, he's fully awakened. He's been asleep for the past 200 million years, but all of that to him just seemed like a couple moments ago, and now he's in front of all of these things that he's never seen before. There are shapes that he's never experienced, clean-cut rectangles, lines running up and down, perfect circles, lights coming out of screens, solid objects that he could feel but see through. Everything just didn't make sense to him. But as he steps out of the tub and onto the ground, he makes his way towards the only thing that was familiar, the one scent that he could recognize. Alan is just sitting there eating his food when he hears slight drops behind him. As he turns, he's face to face with Pickle himself. Now the narrator chimes in, explaining that in moments of panic, humans aren't really capable of thinking properly. It's more like a jumble of thoughts and emotions surging in and out of the brain in rapid succession, not giving the individual any proper time to actually process them or make any significant conclusions. Pickle just takes the steak right off of Alan's plate and shoves the entire thing in his mouth, eating and swallowing it without even chewing. He just glares at Alan, and at this point, he knows he's cooked. Pickle starts smelling them up and down, and while I thought he was gonna be able to smell the dinosaur on his breath, he just walks away. Alan thanks God for the fact that Pickle doesn't think he tastes good, though he's kinda offended at the thought of it. Alan reaches in the drawer, looking at the handgun, realizing that he has to be the representation of modern humanity. He makes it his mission to show one thing to Pickle: humans of today aren't to be messed with. But before he can even take aim, he wonders what Pickle's even trying to do. He's just searching around, and Alan has no clue what his objective is, but sensing the hostility, Pickle turns around, beginning to make this face and growl. Alan can tell that Pickle's mad, but obviously he doesn't know why. And as Pickle approaches him, he starts telling Pickle to hold on for just a second. He's trying to speak to him, but at the same time, he knows that Pickle doesn't understand English. He just moves closer and closer while Alan aims the gun, warning Pickle to stay back. Pickle glares at him, almost daring him to shoot, but as he decides to let off a warning shot at his feet, he disappears before the shot could even land, showing his face right behind him. Out of pure instinct, he turns around, letting off 3 quick shots point blank in his abdomen, as once again, Pickle feels this new sensation, but he takes the bullets out of his stomach. These 9mm rounds weren't nearly strong enough to pierce his abdominal muscles. Alan, of course, is at a loss for words. He shot this gun right at him from 2 feet away, but still, he was yet to experience the greatest shock of the night. This dude Pickle takes the ammo from his hands and hurls it right back at Alan, with 2 of them landing on both sides of his head, but the third connects. Blood begins to run down his arm as he's scared to death. He starts to try and escape, but Pickle follows right after him. Alan has nothing left he could do at this point, so he just starts shooting out even more rounds, trying to incapacitate him to some level, but Pickle just grabs him by the shoulders. Alan has completely surrendered. He's come to terms with the fact that he's dead, but instead of ripping his body in half, as Pickle is completely able of doing so, he just begins to shake. He shakes Alan back and forth, getting faster and faster, as when he finally drops him to the ground, he begins to growl and scream in Alan's face. While he was confused at first, he concludes that Pickle must be trying to make some type of demand. He wants Alan to do something, but he can't figure out exactly what he wants him to do. But nonetheless, he's grateful that since Pickle wants something out of him, he's not gonna kill him. But as soon as he's thinking that, he gets smacked all the way down the hallway, straight into the wall. He failed to remember that Pickle is still this savage beast. Even if he's not trying to kill him, he easily can. Alan makes another escape attempt, but of course, Pickle is keeping right up with him. He drags himself to this keypad in front of this locked freezer of the facility, but as soon as he opens it up, it was too late. Pickle is there, but instead of finishing Alan off, he's more interested in this room. As he goes in there, he screams, standing in front of the T-Rex that he was just hunting before he was frozen in the salt. And now that his prey has been taken away from him, he doesn't know how to react. Quickly, Alan shuts the door, somehow managing to trap Pickle. Not too long later, we see that the police has arrived and Professor Payne is going over the situation with Alan. Of course, he doesn't explain that Pickle only woke up because Alan was trying to cook up a Tyrannosaurus steak, but he explains that Pickle is confined in the freezer with the body of the T-Rex. It was his decision to call over all these police, and Payne isn't exactly too happy about it. Now that the police have arrived in such a big group, his wishes of choosing how to release this info to the public is now out of his hands. From the side, one of the chief officers pull up saying that they're about to raid the freezer and warns the two scientists that they may not be able to bring back Pickle alive. Payne just says that they'll never succeed, and as the officer wonders who he even is, doubting the police like this, Payne introduces himself and instantly bro tightens up, recognizing that Payne is a Nobel Prize laureate. Now, I didn't know what that meant, but I just looked it up and laureate means winner, so he's the winner of a Nobel Prize. I'm gonna add that to my vocab. But yeah, Professor Payne is well known for being a Nobel Prize laureate, and Payne just gets serious, saying that if they're gonna raid it, they need to bring in the army. Dude doesn't want to be disrespectful and ignore the words of somebody so prestigious, but he's well aware that there's only one person in there, and while he may have enough strength as a wild beast, it's not like he's King Kong or something. They should be fine. Payne says that's perfect. He was trying to figure out a proper way to describe Pickle, and King Kong may be the perfect description. As they're talking about this, there's an explosion from inside the freezer. As breaking through this thick wall of cement, Pickle just stands there. Seeing this, dude immediately retracts everything that he was saying earlier. He tells his men to get in touch with HQ and bring in the army immediately. Pickle just runs up, grabbing this car, lifting it and throwing it on top of another one, as the policeman doesn't understand what he's looking at right now. He calls for a high-level emergency. From Payne's POV, he thinks that Pickle lived to hunt his prey. All he would do is hunt, eat, and repeat, but that has not been taken away from him. As a result, he's enraged. Obviously, the police aren't enough to take care of the situation, so they call in the army immediately. The police told them that there was an armed terrorist at a nuclear site, but upon getting there, they find out that that was obviously a lie. The leader representing the army says that lying about something like that is unforgivable in every single situation except for this one. This one man does indeed have that much destructive power. Seeing that he doesn't have any weapons, the army chief wonders why they didn't just shoot him down, but Payne doesn't have time to explain. He just tells him that that man right there is more valuable to humanity than any president of any country. He must be kept alive. And the armyman isn't exactly sure why, but since Professor Payne is a Nobel laureate, he decides to comply with his request. They'll capture Pickle without causing any harm. And to do so, they're going to deploy this special machine that's been in development for the past year in secret. They're bringing out the MPBM, a multi-purpose battle machine. The person being trained to operate this machine has spent the past year of his life within it. He's comfortable enough to eat delicate foods, or strong enough to lead a pack of lions, or destroy military vehicles. He could do it all. The machine's capable of doing all of these complex, fine movements while also having the strength unmatched by any human. The operator in the MPBM steps up to Pickle as the military chief wonders why Pickle's just sitting there. Professor Payne can only theorize that he's protecting something. Feeling threatened by all of these strange things and people around him, he's defending his era from the modern times. The only thing that's familiar to him was his prey. And since that's dead, he won't let these people take it away from him. From the change of modern times, he's defending everything that he knows in life, as the fight between the MPBM and Pickle begins. Pickle throws one punch directly to the center of his opponent, and while the MPBM was able to wrap its arm or claw around Pickle's neck, he shatters through the plate of armor. After one simple hit, the operator gives up on trying to capture Pickle alive, knowing that if he doesn't, then he'll die. He starts trying to spin and claw around Pickle's neck, causing his head to shake back and forth. But once Pickle grabs it, he plants his foot, lifting the entire machine into the air, so now it is spinning around the claw. Shortly after, it flies off the hinge, as now Pickle just screams. The army that came through wasn't enough. and now they're bringing these helicopters and military tanks onto the scene. The chief of the US military special forces is Gary, and he's having this inner monologue wondering if a single living being is really challenging the greatest army in the world. Even with the latest technology, it's still not enough. This beast is doing more than holding its own. To him, that's unacceptable. As they approach Pickle, one of his men lets him know and he tells everybody to stop. He steps out of his tank, telling them that he'll be right back. Gary walks towards him and he takes off his hat and his jacket, gradually making his way there until he's standing right in front of Pickle. He's taking off all his clothes in order to seem more familiar to him, as Pickle can realize that Gary isn't looking down on him with hatred or fear. His eyes are filled with compassion. Gary extends his hand, telling Pickle that he wants to learn more about him. And while of course Pickle can't understand what Gary's saying, the message still got through. Pickle grabs his hand as Gary plans on taking Pickle to a place where there are others like him, other beasts residing on Earth. Pickle is heading to Japan. Not too long later, we see a military plane landing at this Japanese terminal. We're hearing things from the perspective of these news reporters as they're giving commentary on this widely popular event. This is exactly what Payne didn't want to happen. After the police and eventually the army got involved, word got out, and now Pickle is this worldwide phenomenon. He caused plenty of commotion over in the US, and now his trip to Japan is being covered extensively. Reporters are all there in person, while at home, all across the country, people are glued to their TVs. Even at Baki's place, he's there watching with Gary, and as Pickle steps off the plane, he's surrounded by a swarm of like 12 soldiers. He's towering over them, and just seeing through the TV, Baki is instantly aware of Pickle's strength. The TV reporters call to their on-scene reporter, Ms. Aizawa, as they ask her if she can get up close to him and try to get him to speak, and gladly she accepts. She runs up past the line of all the other reporters trying to get in close and talk to him, and while the soldiers warn her to stay back, Pickle shoves them out the way, leaning in, making this intense direct eye contact with her. Pickle grabs her by the face and tackles her to the ground, as nobody can fathom what they're beginning to witness, neither those in person nor watching on TV. All at a loss for words, nobody said a thing. As Pickle ripped both of their clothes off, the soldiers finally snapped back into it. They quickly take action, but as demonstrated earlier, the strength of modern humans can't compare to Pickle. Punches and kicks are being rained down on him, but that didn't matter. He's beginning to show his true nature as the wild beast that he is. And as the spectators wonder what he'll do next, Pickle just settles down on the ground, falling asleep. How could a savage beast like this even exist in today's world? What kind of phenomenon would need to take place in order for a being to survive 200 million years past its birth? Professor Payne gives his theory. He gives the basic rundown on how dinosaurs roamed the earth in surplus until a meteor came and crashed down. The impact from said meteor created this ginormous cloud of dust, large and dense enough to block the earth from the sun's rays. And due to both of those factors, the earth plunged in temperature to that of its surrounding space, causing all life on earth to freeze. The impact from the meteor caused the plates from the earth to shift, which had allowed this battle, frozen in time, to be preserved miles underground. Of course, this battle was the battle between that T-Rex and Pickle. After being found, the T-Rex was too badly injured for it to be recovered, though Pickle was practically unharmed. That's how he came to be today. He gives a word on the tragic incident involving Ms. Aizawa at the airport, feeling nothing but regret for there being a victim of Pickle in a situation like this. But he asks everybody to try and understand that Pickle is practically coming from a whole different world. 200 million years ago, this earth was nothing like it is today. The morals, ethics, and practical guidelines that all humans understand are impossible for him to comprehend. Even though he tried his best to explain, the people are still in outrage. Civilians are all lined up outside of this US military base, demanding that Pickle gets punished for his actions. Regardless of what era he came from, this is unacceptable. Though the military has yet to make any comment on the situation, emerging from the crowd, we see somebody not here to protest, but to make his way in, telling the guards that he knows that Pickle is there and he's gonna go and see him. Yujiro begins to step forward, but the guard puts his gun straight to Yujiro's chest, stopping him. While over on the side, in the shadows, Retsu jumps this 10-foot tall fence. Inside the facility, we see that Pickle is being contained there in this tiny little room. Inside the room, they decorated it with this little tire, books, a pond, and a toy dinosaur. The guarding officers aren't even sure why they placed these things there specifically, but his partner tells him to pipe down. There's no point in wondering, they just gotta do their job. Over with Retsu, he says that he feels some type of way about Pickle ever since he's seen him appear on TV for the very first time. On first sight, he knew that he had to come see him in person. A guard comes walking up as it seems that Retsu's about to get caught, but as soon as he walks past, Retsu knocks on the tank of the truck that he was hiding behind, and as the guard turns to see what the noise was, he disappears right behind him. He's all up in his skin, perfectly mimicking this officer's steps in order to not make any noise, as this is his perfect opportunity to get around the base without getting caught. Over at the entrance of the base, Yujiro is taking the complete opposite approach. He's forcing his way through. Yujiro warns them all that things are about to get ugly, as we don't even get to see the action. We get a testimony from one of the witnesses in the crowd. He says that as Yujiro got upset, everybody there could feel the heat radiating from his body, and out of nowhere, the soldiers began to punch each other repeatedly. As these two are going back and forth at it, the third one didn't try to stop them, but instead began punching himself. Yujiro just sat there and watched the entire time. After a while, he walks up to the gate, but the soldiers continue to hit each other rather than trying to stop him, as he nor anybody else in the crowd could understand what was going on. The only logical assumption was that they were punishing each other before Yujiro got the chance to do so. This continued, getting worse and worse until Yujiro gave them the order to stop, and almost as if they had gotten a command from the US president himself, they stopped instantly. Yujiro explains to them that they made the right choice. If they had tried to run or attack him, he would have slaughtered them all without a second thought, but they decided to hurt themselves, the only correct decision. For doing so, he'll forgive them and let them leave with their lives, as the soldiers felt nothing but relief. Though they were all beaten to a pulp by each other, they couldn't be happier. Yujiro walks up and slices through the metal lock on the door with his bare hands. As casually, he walks inside and nobody even dared to stop him. Over with Retsu, he's still following in this dude's footsteps. But the problem is, he doesn't know where Pickle is. This military base is huge, and he doesn't have the time to individually check each building on his own. But suddenly, the soldier he was tailing runs into another patrolman. And this dude Retsu is still able to mimic his movements perfectly, bruh. It's comedy. While I thought that it would have been bad news for Retsu to run into another officer, it turns out this is exactly what he needed, because this other officer is en route to circle Pickle's building right now. So Retsu switches targets from the OG guard who had almost caught him to this other dude. He's following in his shadow perfectly, as expected, but when the light tower just happens to fall on the soldier, he looks down to see this long braid of hair. Obviously, this dude don't got hair like that, but before he can turn around and fully react, Retsu knocks him out, apologizing for having to do so. He drags him off to the side as he climbs a separate tower, looking down at the special building where Pickle's being kept. He has his own base inside of this military base, guarded by its own fence and group of soldiers. Retsu uses his rope to secure a path over there from above so that nobody spots him, but as he makes it to the roof, the hatch on top is already open. Somebody got there before him. As he drops down into the level where Pickle's cage is, we run into a familiar face. I'm not gonna lie, I forgot who bro was. The first person that came to mind was the guy who had faced off against Dorian in his little hideout, getting completely washed, and then he pulled back up on him at the amusement park. But nah, that dude's name is Kato, where this dude is Kosho, the younger brother of that Dr. Kariha, and also the one who had lost to Doyle in his hotel room. It's crazy that I could really only describe these dudes by their losses, but hey, I'm sure they got much more lore from the OG series and the OVA. Maybe I'll get around to those one day. Anyways, they both realize that they're here to see Pickle. Why else would they go through all the trouble to sneak to a military base like this? Kosho was immediately intrigued when he saw him and his savagery on TV. He had to come here to see him, and if possible, he wanted to fight. Both he and Retsu managed to get here, but Kosho came first. But it turns out, he actually didn't. The dinosaur starts shaking violently, as breaking through it is this dude Dappo. He was sitting inside of this dinosaur the entire time. But not even he was the first to get here, because coming up out the water, Jack shows up. He was holding his breath for who knows how long. Making it a whole party, this dude Shibukawa crawls out from underneath the bed, and Katsumi breaks in through the wall from the side. Jaku drops in from a vent above as all these people are popping up out of nowhere. It's this whole circus. All of them here for Pickle. But since everybody is showing their face all at once with the same objective, they know that only one of them can actually fight Pickle. Before deciding who gets to fight, they check on Pickle himself, as through all this commotion, Pickle isn't threatened not one bit. He's still lying there, sleeping. He doesn't see these people here as enemies at all. Now, Jack, being the way that he is, kicks the side of the tree, waking Pickle up. He's not gonna sit here and let Pickle disrespect him by getting this sweet rest while he's in Jack's presence. But as Pickle gets up out of the tree, towering over everybody but Jack, he starts to relieve himself, still not showing any type of respect to any of the fighters there. He's just going on about his business, all until something from the side catches his eye. Standing by the entrance that Katsumi made, Yujiro just stares on, and Pickle takes notice. Walking up to the glass, Yujiro refers to everybody else here as, quote, a ragtag mob, and he can't believe that everybody just happened to pull up on Pickle all at the same time. But from the side, Katsumi, of all people, gets offended that Yujiro was calling him a part of this, quote, ragtag mob. He doesn't know who Yujiro's talking to. I can't believe that Katsumi is the one to call Yujiro out. He's probably the weakest one here, if we being honest, and clearly Yujiro can't believe it neither. He just looks over at Katsumi, telling him this is why nobody likes him. Not Yujiro, not Baki, not even Katsumi's father. Hearing that strikes a nerve in Katsumi's brain. Yujiro continues to go on, talking about Katsumi and how weak he is and how much he is a disappointment to his family and the people around him. And going through Katsumi's brain is only one thought. There's only one thing that he felt like he could do in a situation like this. He responds to Yujiro by attacking. He sends out this sweeping kick. As he lands, Yujiro was of course unaffected. He plants his foot back down, realizing that his shoe is completely undone. The shoelace was snatched off of it by Yujiro in the middle of his kick. He didn't even choose to attack him back, but just to completely embarrass him. Yujiro takes the lace, throwing it at his face, tying it behind his head, completely shutting him down. I've never seen somebody get embarrassed like this. That's why. He turns to face Pickle, telling everybody to get the hell out the way. He's here to make his introduction. Kosho offers to give him the key that he stole off the officer, but Yujiro just calls him a fool. Through this military-grade protective barrier, he begins to walk through it and stretch it all the way out. Without using his hands or any special impact to break through, the pure force of his legs and his body allows Yujiro to shatter the glass, greeting Pickle face to face. Yujiro breaks down the situation. Everybody went out of their way in order to get into this facility and greet Pickle and fight him. In a way, he should be honored. Pickle is this ancient fighter back from the Jurassic area, where he preyed on the most powerful creatures on Earth. If he wanted to, he could have ate and fed himself in any way that he wanted. But he decided to fight and kill the strongest enemies available to him. And for that, Yujiro grants him the honor of his own interest. Yujiro extends his hand for a fist bump, and as Pickle puts his fist to it, this impact shines throughout the room. As Yujiro makes his presence known, Pickle can feel it, as that of a dinosaur he's never seen before. He steps in, responding with the force of his own, as Yujiro flips Pickle around 360 degrees, putting him flat on his butt. He's genuinely shocked that Pickle had forced him into making a move when he didn't plan on doing so. Pickle just stands up on his feet after that, and just the act of him standing, for some odd reason, just amazes everybody in attendance. Curious as to what he's gonna do next, nobody can leave now, but they hear a voice radiating from outside, telling Yujiro to exit the building immediately. They've got it completely surrounded. As he steps outside, the commander-in-chief comes sprinting to the entrance as he tightens his stance, saluting Yujiro, apologizing for being a disturbance while he was enjoying himself. He gives an introduction with his name and his position in the squadron, as Yujiro can't believe that he's arresting him so politely. But the commander says he's not arresting him. He knows that the army would never be able to arrest Yujiro, so he's not even trying. He's here to simply make a request. He asks Yujiro to withdraw from this fight. He explains that Pickle is a treasure to humanity, and he doesn't want Yujiro to destroy him. It's not his place to ask Yujiro to follow his orders, but he asks that Yujiro understand. Looking down on the soldier who's on his knees at this point, Yujiro says only on one condition will he withdraw. They have to let the other 8 in there leave as well. I'm surprised that Yujiro did this, but he explains that they all know that the other intruders aren't here to destroy or steal anything. They're here for the same reason that Yujiro is. But if the officer has a problem with that, then Yujiro can handle it. But immediately, the officer is begging that Yujiro doesn't intervene. And just like that, at Yujiro's request, all 8 intruders who broke illegally into this high security military base were completely let off the hook. They were driven off in this truck and released 10 miles away. Now, if you take count of the people there, we see that there's only 7 other intruders, but Yujiro had caught out 8 because he saw somebody who was hiding in the shadows who had never revealed himself. The entire time, Gaia was there, camouflaged with this tree, as he just makes his own escape. Funny enough, we see somebody who looks eerily close to Gaia back at the protest, but I don't think it's exactly him, because his do-rag looks a little bit different and his pants might be different. I don't know. It's probably not him, but it resembles him close enough. Baki is having some lemonade with Romina, as he asks Baki if he thinks he could take Pickle down. But Baki's got no interest. He's well aware that Pickle is a treasure to society. You can't just walk up and fight him. That'd be like trying to break into a pyramid and live there. It's a historical artifact that's not to be messed with. Romina is persistent on the fact that Pickle's so strong and how he used to prey on T-Rexes. Baki has to, at the very least, be interested since he fought that praying mantis not too long ago. But Baki explains his rationale of only wanting to get stronger in order to defeat his father. He only fought that extremely large praying mantis because his father is just that strong. But Pickle, that's unnecessary. Romina calls out that Baki, when talking about his dad, always seems happy. He has this excited expression on his face anytime he speaks on fighting his father. He didn't recognize it, but Romina says that it's true. Over with Pickle, we see him in his little room as it's been destroyed due to the intruders, but he's just sitting inside of his tree, thinking about that earlier interaction with Yujiro. He's replaying that moment over and over in his head. He doesn't know how he was spun around in the way that he was. None of his other enemies have ever done something like that. This moment was a puzzle that appeared in Pickle's mind, offering a new type of stimulation that honestly made him happy. At the Kung Fu Training and Research Center, Retsu is demonstrating this technique on these cement bricks. The instructor is calling out a number and Retsu is breaking that specific brick in the stack through one punch at the beginning. So he calls out 9 and Retsu breaks the 9th block. He calls out 7 and he breaks the 7th block. After the final one, everybody is amazed as we see that Baki is also there in the crowd. They meet to chat after as Baki asks Retsu to teach him Kung Fu. He sees Retsu as a martial arts veteran, knowing that there's a lot that he could teach him, but unexpectedly, Retsu turns him down. He explains that he's not interested in Baki. The only thing he cares about is Pickle. Baki tries to explain to him that Pickle's a national treasure and it makes no sense to fight him, but Retsu already knows all of this. Still, he can't stop his desire to fight him. He wants to touch Pickle, to grasp. This is crazy how they said it. It's crazy. He wants to see how his martial arts of the past 4,000 years stacks up against this prehistoric man. And even though he knows that it's wrong, nothing can stop him. As Baki's making his leave, he's upset that everybody is so fixated on Pickle. All of Japan can't stop thinking about him. Tokugawa, Professor Pain, and Gary are accompanied by these guards, all surrounding Pickle at the underground arena. Currently, there's a big problem. Pickle won't eat. For the past month, he's only consumed water, and Tokugawa explains that Pickle isn't a beast, but a proud fighter. He won't eat anything that isn't his prey. If it doesn't fight him, he won't bat an eye. They've thrown bulls at him, bears, lions, all types of stuff, but they all tuck their tails and run from Pickle out of raw instinct. Up until now, nothing that they've tried has worked, but there is one thing that they've been setting up. They spent a good chunk of money on getting their hands on one of this endangered species, as this beast hasn't eaten in 5 days. It's been specifically primed in order to fight Pickle. They bring out a Siberian tiger, the most powerful feline. It's sitting at over 15 feet long and over 1,000 pounds. This is the current most powerful beast in the world. This thing is huge, and as it makes its way into the ring, Pickle looks intrigued. Tiger sees Pickle as its prey, and Pickle sees it as the same. Instantly, he runs up on it and attacks. And just in one short interaction that we don't even get to see on camera, Pickle completely manhandles this thing, deforming it and breaking its entire structure in one attack. Even though the tiger wasn't able to put up much of a fight, since it attacked Pickle, he saw it as his prey and he gladly eats it. Somehow, word of this got out in the news and Professor Payne was forced to put out a comment on the situation. He explains how much of a miracle Pickle's existence is and tries to explain to everybody the significance of that. He knows that putting up an endangered species to be Pickle's food isn't fully right, but if that's the only thing that Pickle will eat, then they have no other choice. He would sacrifice all of the Siberian tigers left on Earth if he had to. Pickle's value is much more valuable than that of any species remaining. Of course, hearing this on national television, the people are outraged, and watching from home, Retsu decides to pay Tokugawa a little visit. He asks why Retsu's here, and Retsu wants more clarification on the pickle situation. He knows that they're having trouble finding him things to eat, and that it's a big problem for everybody involved. Tokugawa breaks it down in the detail that Retsu had asked for, and Retsu offers a solution of his own. He asks Tokugawa, what if Retsu became Pickle's food? Tokugawa cannot believe his ears, but Retsu is dead serious. He's clearly thought about this for some time, and he's ready to act on it. Tokugawa isn't really too fond of the idea, but Retsu is insisting. They both know that Pickle needs food, and if no animal is willing to attack him and become his prey, then Retsu will do so. But of course, he explains that he has no intention of being eaten. This is all a way for him to get into the ring with Pickle and fight to his fullest. Tokugawa just smiles as Retsu declares it Pickle versus Retsu Kaio, the prehistoric man versus the pinnacle of Chinese martial arts. And being the fight junkie that he is, Tokugawa couldn't possibly turn that down. Professor Pain can't believe that both Tokugawa and Gary are okay with this strategy. If offering a Siberian tiger to be eaten wasn't enough, a human is completely outrageous. They're over here saying that it's fine because Retsu is offering to do this himself. But Pain is just going on and on about how it's not, though it's already too late. Walking up, Retsu just looks at Pickle sleeping there on the ground. He's honestly impressed that Pickle is sleeping in this position, completely defenseless. Most animals will naturally hide when they go to sleep, but this sleeping position shows complete dominance. Even in the era of dinosaurs, the most fierce creatures to walk the planet, this is the sleeping position that Pickle takes. Even among dinosaurs, he was still at the top of the food chain. In the crowd, both Gary and Tokugawa are curious to see how this will play out. The master of the past 4,000 years of Chinese martial arts versus Pickle and his natural power gifted to him by God. But Professor Pain interrupts once again, saying that this won't be a fight, it'll be a massacre. Retsu will get killed, but they both tell him to shut up. This is the first time that he's ever been told to shut up. He much more calmly asked them to understand what he's saying. They just saw this Siberian tiger get completely manhandled. A human wouldn't stand a chance. But in the middle of his explanation, Pickle sits up. Pain is worried that his rant had disturbed Pickle, but it wasn't that. Pickle sensed something else. We see Retsu walking towards him as Pickle stands to his feet for the first time. Against all other animals besides the Siberian tiger, he had stayed on the ground. But Retsu's presence was enough to demand a more serious attitude. Retsu was indeed a worthy opponent. For the first time, Pickle takes a fighting stance, as Retsu knows that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He's gonna put everything on the line. Retsu's the first to step in as he gets into Pickle's range. As he attacks, he sends Retsu flying into the wall on the other edge of the arena. With just that one attack, Retsu knows that he can't compare in terms of strength. He'll have to fully rely on his martial arts techniques in order to win. Pickle runs back in for another attack, but Retsu does this turnaround sweep kick directly in his face, as he flings his hair into Pickle's eye, tripping him onto the ground and hitting him with another kick directly in the face. Pickle was knocked back by the flurry of attacks, but he sits right back up. And Retsu can't believe that he's barely taken any damage. He knows that a normal person would have died from an attack like that. He gives Pickle his props, and as Pickle runs in, Retsu deflects his left, responding with a kick and then a strike to his core, chaining it into a chop attack and these continuous hits over and over. Pain can't believe that Retsu is really getting this many hits off on Pickle. He's actually overpowering him. Retsu jumps up for this kick and proceeds to land even more consecutive hits directly to Pickle's chin, as by the end of it, he knows that Pickle must be going through thousands of concussions all at once. He's dealt a handful of deadly blows, but honestly, he doesn't want the fight to end. He's praying that Pickle survives this. Surely enough, he did. Pickle grabs him by the face, attacking him with this head strike to Retsu's chest as he just falls to his knees. Getting a closer look at him, Pickle is crying as he picks Retsu up, biting into his shoulder and eating him. Nobody can believe that Pickle is really eating this man right now, as Retsu finally responds with a knee to his gut, but Pickle bites once again. Retsu manages to put some distance between the two, but he's come to the realization that his punches do nothing to Pickle. Now, it's time for him to get serious. Retsu takes his shoes off, giving himself more control in full strength. He's pissed that Pickle is really eating him. As he goes in for a kick to his neck, Pickle responds with a strike, sending Retsu right to the ground. Just through pure strength, He's overpowering Retsu's mastery of the martial arts, as he can't believe that he's in a fight where martial arts has no effect. He's beginning to tear up, thanking the martial arts for everything that it's done for him, but right now, he must abandon it. Retsu Kaio was the name that was given to him by his master, but now he must defend that and the history of martial arts as Retsu Eishu, the name that was given to him by his parents. Retsu puts his arms up as the crowd doesn't know what he's about to do. It doesn't seem like he's about to do any martial arts, and in the ring, they're completely right. Retsu proceeds to use the windmill punch. He's running, crying, shouting, swinging his arms in circles. Pickle has no idea what's going on. Retsu abandoned everything that he was using before, technique-wise, and is going off of pure emotion. This was his absolute last resort, and Pickle isn't even fighting back. Compared to what he was just going up against, where he felt like he should have used his full strength, this is just pathetic. Pickle finally attacks, but Retsu instinctively retaliates through a kick. He's confused because he had decided to give up on his martial arts for this fight, but here he just did a martial arts move. Pickle attacks again, and Retsu retaliates with another martial arts move. He's doing this instinctively. He's more confused than ever, but suddenly he hears a voice calling out his name. Retsu, don't be so cold. Retsu asks who it is, as it answers, I am you. I'm the true Retsu Kaio, the one that you aspire to be. The moment that Retsu did that windmill punch, he had abandoned martial arts, but the martial arts never abandoned him. The ideal Retsu tells him that he's being tested. Don't think about shouldering the martial arts history. Don't think about the 4,000-year past. He's not to worry about defending it. Just surrender to his body and his training, or else he'll never be able to shoulder anything ever again. Pickle strikes, but confidently, Retsu retaliates with the martial arts that he knows and loves, trusting in his own abilities and everything that he stands for instead of abandoning it. He hits Pickle with a multitude of attacks, hitting him in the balls, grabbing his hair with his toes, bringing it down into a knee straight to the face, as finally, he manages to send Pickle right to the ground. After giving it up, he understands that this is what it means to shoulder the 4,000-year history of Chinese martial arts. Tokugawa and Gary are amazed at Retsu's strength, as even Professor Payne is impressed that Retsu was able to hold up this long against Pickle. They're confused because of how Payne worded it, saying that clearly Retsu won. But in the ring, as we see Pickle lift his head back up, Payne explains that he hasn't suffered any concussions like they may have thought. He calls back to when Pickle was discovered. Payne and his team of scientists ran all types of x-rays and experiments on his body to learn more about him, and what they found was that his spine was incredibly thick and durable, very different than what we find in humans today. It resembled much more of that of four-legged beasts, those with extremely large heads. Thanks to that extra strength and durability, Pickle hasn't really taken much damage from Retsu's attacks, as he was able to come to the conclusion that at one period in his life, Pickle was a quadruped. He walked on all fours. Retsu attacks, but Pickle jumps out of the way, and they realize that while the history of martial arts is incredible as it is, it was designed to be used against humans on two legs. Against a beast like this, using all four, those same rules of Chinese martial arts can't apply. Pickle aggressively screams at Retsu, as he's forced to lock in. He's in this stance extremely bent forward and low to the ground. Not like a sprinter or a sumo wrestler, but more similar to that of a lion preparing to attack its prey. Pickle is only worried about one thing, lunging forward. He won't dive to the side or jump up or go backwards. And Retsu says that in response to Pickle and his commitment to this forward lunge, he won't move out the way neither. He's gonna use the crushing fist, a move symbolic of Kung Fu. This is how he'll strike Pickle down. As Pickle loads up his lunge, he bursts towards Retsu, flinging his body. This is the type of attack that he uses against the strongest of enemies, the greatest enemies of back in his day. He felt that it was necessary to use here against Kaio Retsu. Retsu responds with his crushing fist, but he gets beamed right through the wall. He was the impenetrable defense of the modern times, going up against the unstoppable weapon of the past. And today, the weapon undeniably wins. Tokugawa can't believe that Retsu really just lost like that. Inside the ring, Pickle begins crying, much more than he was before, because now he knows what's about to happen. He begins walking towards Retsu as Pain tells Tokugawa that it's dinner time. Tokugawa can't believe that he actually wants to go through with letting Pickle eat Retsu, but Pain says that they were the ones who put him up to this in the first place. Pain had begged them not to, but they insisted. They can't lie on the promise that they gave Pickle at the very beginning, but Tokugawa doesn't care. He's not gonna lose one of his prize fighters like this. He runs up on Pickle, yelling at him, wondering if he's really gonna eat this man. He's going on about Retsu, but in the middle of his rant, Pickle hits him away, screaming. We cut forward to seeing Pickle eating the leg of Retsu, and while his appetite was strong, Pickle felt nothing but sorrow. This was his goodbye to Retsu, but from behind, Pain puts Pickle to sleep as Retsu just lies there on the ground. We fast forward to seeing Retsu in a hospital bed, and this is where the iconic scene occurs. I can't believe that this picture, which I seen before I even started the series, was Photoshopped, right? I mean, it makes sense. How you not gonna have no chest, no legs, no arms, no body at all? But Baki's so ridiculous that I imagine somehow it will be canon. Retsu is sitting in his hospital bed, ashamed with himself that he broke his promise to Pickle. He went into the fight fully believing that if he lost, he'd be eaten, or at the very least, that's what he told himself. But all that was eaten of him was one chunk of his shoulder and the lower part of his leg, nothing more than that. He wonders if he was even fully serious about being eaten in the first place. Maybe deep down, he never thought that he'd actually lose. He's extremely upset that he made a promise and didn't uphold it. From the side, we see that somebody's there, as it's Baki. He heard the news that Retsu was eaten, but honestly, he couldn't believe it. He asks him how his injuries are, but Retsu says it's no problem. He may be disturbed and inconvenienced, but as a martial artist, he lost and gave up a part of his body. There's no shame in that. Though he does explain to Baki that he is ashamed that he may have spoken and given out a promise with no result. People tend to say things like this all the time, that they're ready to kill or they're prepared to die. But to a martial artist like Retsu, and a proud one at that, he's ashamed that he went against his own principle. Baki decides to not let Retsu get too down on himself. He explains that he's lived his life training his body into this refined weapon, and even though he just lost a fight and a part of that weapon that he's built for over a decade, that's not what's causing the pain. Instead, his inner turmoil and the mere fact that he's distraught over the possibility of going against his word is something that he should be prideful in. Baki calls Retsu a treasure to the Republic of China, as he finishes it off by saying that one day he looked up the meaning of Retsu: fierce, intense, and never strays from his path. As he says, that's exactly who Retsu is. As Baki's walking home, clearly he's got Pickle on his mind. He just literally ate Retsu, but he's also thinking about his father. Sometimes his father would use the word eat as a figure of speech. It's not about winning or losing, but eating. And just thinking about it, we could see that same excitement that Romina had pointed out earlier, as Baki is truly amazed with his father. Word of Retsu being eaten by Pickle is getting around to everybody who went to go see Pickle in person at that military base. They're all finding out that he didn't just lose the fight, but he was eaten by this ancient man. And over with Tokugawa and Professor Pain, they see that this thick steel door that was being used to contain Pickle was shattered through. They had given him enough drugs to put an elephant to sleep, but within just a few hours, he woke up and broke through the door. The only other time that this door was ever broken through was when it was done by Yujiro Hanma. This large man is walking through the streets of Tokyo. His name is Takeshi Kenmochi, a 21-year-old fighter who excels in karate, boxing, weightlifting, all types of stuff. He's walking down the street looking for somebody to fight. He's just itching to get physical with somebody. He walks out into this alley to take a leak, but there's somebody there laying in the trash bags. This dude Kenmochi gets pulled into the trash, covered in his own urine, by the way, getting completely manhandled. And walking out of the trash is, of course, Pickle. He switched into Kenmochi's clothes, but he can barely fit. He only got the shoes on right, the jacket only reaches his forearm, he just looks crazy. But he's doing his best to blend in. He's walking into the street, and as he gets a look at the Tokyo nightlife, he's bombarded with all of these new sights, colors, people, everything. Now, I don't really understand the rationale of Pickle trying to disguise himself. Nobody up until now has proven a threat to him, aside from Yujiro, of course, but I feel like it's strange for him to be doing this. Maybe he's going through some change from how he was back at the airport to now, but nonetheless, he's walking with only one thing on his mind: food. He's extremely hungry, as he only ate a little bit of Retsu before he was put to sleep, so he's gotta find something to eat. He's beginning to cross the street and walks into the path of an oncoming truck, colliding head on. Of course, Pickle doesn't know about traffic rules, he doesn't know about cars, so as he's hit, he gets sent flying by something he can't even comprehend. And this dude Pickle is built like such a tank that the outline of his body leaves an imprint on the truck. It looked crazy. The driver runs out to check if Pickle's okay, but he just gets up, growling. Pickle sees this truck as an enemy that just attacked him. He locks in, running up to it and crashing into the truck, trying to lift it and throw it. He's using all of his strength, but the front of the truck gets detached from the rest of it before he can fully lift it up. Pickle attacks the cargo behind, ripping it completely open, exposing himself to the one thing that he's been waiting for. Luckily for him, the truck that he ran into was carrying meat, and instantly he starts going to 10. At headquarters, we get a view of somebody training Katsumi. He's thinking about the words that Yujiro was telling him about how nobody wants to be around him. Not Yujiro, not Baki, not even his own father. And while Katsumi is back in his office, he admits that Yujiro was right. We get some context that I was not expecting before, but Katsumi's father is Dappo, which makes it even crazier that Yujiro said that because Dappo was there in person when Yujiro told him that. Dappo didn't say a thing, but it turns out that he had made Katsumi the chairman, and even Katsumi doesn't think that he has the proper abilities. He's not as legendary or as charismatic as Dappo is. The one thing on Katsumi's mind is fighting Pickle. He gets a call from one of his men as they telling him about Pickle's interaction with that meat truck, as now he's got the perfect reason to go after him. He calls everybody together and breaks down the story between Pickle and Retsu, saying that since Retsu teaches there at Shinshinkai headquarters, they must go for revenge. Currently, Pickle's on the run, and with Shinshinkai's 55,000 members throughout Tokyo, they're gonna beat the police to find Pickle so Katsumi can fight him as soon as possible. Katsumi doesn't even care about winning or losing. Typically, that's what determines whether they go into fights or not, but today, he's going into it regardless of whatever the outcome will be. As one of the leaders of Shinshinkai, he's determined to carry the weight of its 1 million global members on his back. In the city, Pickle finds his way to this club, where the promoter outside is trying to lure him in, but he's interrupted by this dude, Tarita, representing Shinshinkai. The promoter doesn't want to lose a potential customer, but this dude is insisting that Pickle goes with him, while over with Katsumi, he's waiting in this dark room. Dappo pulls up on him, asking him what he's doing. He's already heard about Katsumi's order to have Shinshinkai find Pickle for a fight, but Dappo tells Katsumi what he's already taught him. Don't fight somebody if you can't win. The most important thing for a martial artist is to survive. It makes me think if Dappo knew about Retsu's ordeal with Pickle when he had fought him, and how he feels about him not actually losing his life when he was the one who put it on the line. Katsumi insists on getting revenge for Retsu, so he knows that there's only one way they can handle this dispute. Him and Dappo should have a match. And that's all Dappo was waiting for. Back at the club entrance, they're about to take Pickle back to Katsumi, but somebody else pulls up to the scene. A face that I haven't seen in way too long. Karo Hanayama. I don't know what it is about him. He barely gets any screen time, and maybe that's part of the reason I enjoy it when he does show up, but I rock with Hanayama so much, bro. It's crazy. But as he pulls up, everybody instantly starts showing respect, and he hasn't even said a word yet. Just taking a look at Pickle, Hanayama already knows that he's tough. Tarita, off to the side, begins apologizing to Hanayama, saying that if they somehow manage to offend him, then they're truly sorry. They haven't even done anything to Hanayama, and he hasn't even said anything about them, but he's already apologizing and trying to save face when he hasn't lost any in the first place. But from the side, this random, who I'm assuming is part of Hanayama's gang, puts his knife to Tarita's gut, but Tarita instantly kicks it away. They're afraid of Hanayama, but they ain't got no clue who this guy is. The knife starts flying into the air right in front of Pickle, and out of curiosity, he catches it, but Hanayama meets his hand midair. Now Hanayama is known for his otherworldly grip strength, as he begins to squeeze the blade to the point where it snaps. Elsewhere, Katsumi squeezes Dappo's shirt together and shoves his thumb right into Dappo's throat, putting him down with that one attack. Now, I may have been underestimating Katsumi just a little bit. I called him the weakest out of the group that put up on Pickle back at the military base, and while he might have been the weakest still, if he's taking out Dappo, he might not be that bad. Back with Pickle, he punches, sending Hanayama flying. He knocks out like 5 people on his path to the ground, and as Hanayama's boy tries to get revenge, he gets his arm snapped with just one squeeze from Pickle. He starts to walk off as Tarita steps in front of him, asking him to just stay a little bit longer until Katsumi gets there. but Pickle completely ignores this man. Tarita throws out all types of attacks, but as expected, Pickle doesn't care. He puts Tarita down with one punch, though back on his feet, standing in front of him, is Hanayama. He was knocked down by that attack from Pickle, but he's nowhere near done. He tells him that he's not going anywhere. Pickle rushes him, but unexpectedly, he comes to a stop. Here, in the middle of Tokyo's party district, this man, much smaller than Pickle, is posing the same strength as one of his worthy rivals from back in his time. He wasn't big at all, but as Hanayama begins to push Pickle back, he shows the conviction of all of his human beliefs that he's tied to. These very same beliefs are the reason that Hanayama has gained this strength beyond normal human capability. Pickle has been waiting to find somebody to fight with his full strength, but as he locks in, ready to begin, Hanayama tells him that the fight is already over. He just says, "Finally, you showed up." Now, if Hanayama was the last person I expected to pull up, for some reason, Baki was even lower than that. I didn't even consider it a possibility. I thought that him being uninterested in Pickle meant that the fight was gonna land elsewhere. But here he is, standing right behind him, just admiring Pickle and his body. They're confused why Baki is in awe, but the narrator chimes in, explaining that humans tend to have appreciation for objects and craftsmanship that are refined towards one specific action. With no focus on anything else, Pickle's body is genetically primed to fight. To everybody in the crowd, Baki is the strongest young man on Earth, and they're all holding their breath, waiting for him to make his move. But Baki just apologizes. He had asked Hanayama to let him know if Pickle shows up anywhere, but truth be told, Baki just wanted to meet him. He's not here to fight. Pickle just puts his fist out in the same way that Yujiro did to him when they had met. And right here, I had no clue what was about to happen. Pickle is learning things as he's catching up in the modern times. It's proof that he's learning and growing just as we'd expect any human of today's time to, but he may be learning a little bit too much. He flips Baki around a full 360 degrees, though Baki is able to recover and land on his feet. Experiencing this firsthand, Baki can barely control himself. His Hanma blood flowing through his veins are begging him to fight. Without even thinking, he kicks Pickle, but Pickle barely budges. Baki instantly begins to apologize, and while to others it may seem that he's worried about angering Pickle or offending him, we know that Baki doesn't want to fight Pickle, or at least he doesn't want to fight him. He's apologizing over and over, but Pickle just walks off, turning to Baki, practically inviting him to follow. By the time that Katsumi got there, his men tell him that Pickle had already left with Baki and Hanayama. As Katsumi says, that's fine. The goal was to avenge Retsu, and Baki and Hanayama understand that. It doesn't have to be Katsumi to fight him. This is a pretty mature mindset from Katsumi, not being selfish at all, but one of his men asks if that's really okay. They're all close to Retsu as he was a teacher with the Shinshinkai, and Pickle has already took out Tarita. It should be on Katsumi to get revenge, but realizing that he's going way too far, he backs off. Katsumi looks at him with a deranged look in his eye, asking if he truly thinks that Katsumi could really take down Pickle. Could Katsumi Orochi, the spoiled, helpless son of the great Dappo, possibly beat him? Now, he's the one getting carried away, so he apologizes. Obviously, there's more at stake for Katsumi than getting revenge for Retsu, or even just his basic pride as a fighter. There's this insecurity that Katsumi is dealing with, possibly triggered from that interaction with Yujiro, but something is going on. He admits to everybody that he does want to be the one to take down Pickle. After all, he's the one that said it's not about winning or losing, but the act of going out and fighting. So humbly, he asked them all for their help. Over with Pickle, he brought Hanayama and Baki to the underground fight arena, where he fought Retsu. Baki just takes off his shirt, but Hanayama calls him out, asking if he really wants to get Pickle involved with this. Now, Pickle was the one who brought Baki here, but Baki just looks at Hanayama, stunned. He kind of backs off a little bit, saying that it's really none of his business. He shouldn't have said anything in the first place. But Baki admits that he almost made that same mistake that he made 5 years ago. Mistakenly, he had brought innocent people into this arena and forced them into fights for their lives. Now remember, Baki had won the maximum tournament, but he sees it as he just caused a bunch of unnecessary trouble. He admits that as of recently, he's been getting bored, which is why he was so quick to jump on this opportunity, but he knows better than this. He's not going to let his emotions lead him to more negative action. Mind you, Pickle has no idea what Baki's saying, so he just pulls up on him, kicking him right past Hanayama and into the stands. This dude Pickle completely destroyed Baki with one kick, and Hanayama and Tokugawa see Pickle dancing in victory. Even from 200 million years ago, the victory celebration still remains. He throws his fist up into the air as Tokugawa and Hanayama think that they should just take Baki away before he's eaten alive. Katsumi is doing some training as he's getting flashbacks to Dapo giving him instructions as a young kid. He's reminiscing on his training with his father when Retsu pulls up. Retsu explains that he heard some rumors of Katsumi wanting to go fight Pickle for vengeance, but Retsu knows that he's the one that trained Katsumi. Now it makes no sense that if Retsu stood no chance, then Katsumi would try and get revenge, but Katsumi still insists on getting his revenge. He explains that it's because Retsu is stronger than him and still lost. His pride as a fighter makes him want to go fight Pickle with his karate. Instantly, Retsu recognizes that Katsumi didn't care about revenge in the first place. But at the end of the day, Retsu respects Katsumi's conviction. He asks Katsumi a question, knowing that there's a lot that Retsu can teach him. He asks if Katsumi wants to carry out the Chinese martial arts into his 4,001st year. Now, remember through Retsu's fight, he was constantly thinking about the 4,000 year history of Kung Fu. And here, he's asking Katsumi to take it to the next level. Retsu goes through a brief history of Japanese karate, saying that it only came to Japan 500 years ago. It's still a relatively young martial art, so Kung Fu may be the proper way to continue if he wants to fight Pickle. But Katsumi turns him down. He says that he wants to continue on his path of karate, and even though it may be young and less experienced as Kung Fu, he still wants to commit to it. Retsu just apologizes for trying to stray him away from his path, and instead asks if he can assist in the development of karate. Katsumi isn't so sure because he doesn't want to mix the two histories together, but as Retsu insists, Katsumi finally agrees, as both he and Retsu, masters of karate and kung fu respectively, begin to train. After getting destroyed by Pickle, Baki is back at home just thinking about it. He's imitating what he imagines his father would say in reaction to hearing him lose in such a quick fight. And over with Yujiro, he's saying exactly that, about how Baki went to seek out Pickle with no real purpose, and that's why he lost so easily. There with Yujiro is Tokugawa, saying that Baki at least tried his best. But Yujiro presses him, telling him that those are the words of a loser. If Tokugawa ever says something like that to Yujiro again, he's done for. But Yujiro sees this as a net positive. He knows that Baki, having the Hanma bloodline inside of him, is gonna feel nothing but excitement after an encounter like that. As over with Baki, he's just replaying that moment over and over in his head. He's still got the imprint of Pickle's foot bruised onto his chest. As with Pickle as his obstacle, Baki finally has the catalyst that'll push him in order to increase his power to a level that he never would have been able to do so on his own. Since Retsu and Katsumi have started training together, Retsu tells him that there's one move of his, the Mach punch, that had really surprised him. Retsu is a master of Kung Fu, but still, Katsumi's Mach punch made him visibly shocked. That's how special that move truly is. Katsumi explains how it works, saying that it uses the power generated from his big toes and it gets accelerated from one knee to the other and through the hips and his spine, working its way all through the body into his wrist. With each joint that it goes through, they move in turn in order to accelerate the speed of the punch faster and faster. He had once used this move on Hanayama, which is low-key crazy. I gotta see this fight. But even though Retsu was surprised, his reaction at the time was that the Chinese martial arts had already passed this level thousands of years ago. This continues to show the difference between Chinese martial arts and Japanese martial arts, but Retsu didn't say that in order to be disrespectful or say that Chinese was better or whatever. Those were just his honest observations, and they were true. Though he does admit that while he's done this move in practice, he's never done it in a real fight. Retsu explains that there's only one person in the world who he believes to have truly mastered the Mach punch, the current grandfather of Chinese martial arts, Kaku. Retsu believes that Katsumi has the ability to master this move and push it even further. He sees this natural, God-given potential inside of him. Slowly, over time, as I'm watching episode after episode, I'm starting to see that Katsumi might actually be like that. I went from completely underestimating him to kinda underestimating him, and now I think he really might be able to hang with the big dogs. Meanwhile, at the underground fight arena, we see that Pickle has been put to sleep. They used hundreds of barrels of chloroform, which is this gas, liquid type of mixture heavier than air. They caught him off guard by it, and since they put him in there, he's fell asleep. Professor Payne thinks that they gotta build a facility in order to contain him as soon as possible, but Tokugawa doesn't think that's necessary. He says that they don't need guards or anybody to even hold him in. He came back here on his own will, and after fighting Baki, or if you can even call that a fight, he believes that as long as he stays here in this fight arena, he'll find either food or somebody to play with. That's honestly all he wants. That's where he was brought all those animals. That's of course where he fought Retsu, and it's where he's encountered Baki. While they're there talking about him, Pickle suddenly gets up, yawning, instantly looking around for somebody to fight. But Tokugawa yells out to him, saying that they're still trying to find somebody for him to play with, so in the meantime, he can just go back to sleep. Now, Pickle doesn't talk nor listen to Japanese, but somehow he understood clearly. He goes right back to sleep, and this is even more expansion on the theme that Pickle is growing and adapting into modern times. Of course, he's from 200 million years ago, and coming into this brand new world where he doesn't recognize anything, he's picking up things and adapting extremely fast for the situation. At home, Baki is training. One thing that's hilarious about this show is how they have the most ridiculous training metrics. Baki is crumpling a piece of paper in his hand, and the growth that he's satisfied with is being able to fully hide the single page within the grasp of his hand. It's not how much he could lift or how far he could run or how fast he could move, but it's the fact that he can crumple up this paper so tightly that it hides within his fist, when that's something that he couldn't do before. I don't know where or how he came up with something like this, but it's just comedy. Training elsewhere, Katsumi and Retsu are studying the shock waves caused by something reaching Mach speed. Normally, it's achieved by jet engines or other mechanical creations, but Katsumi explains that a human can reach true Mach speed using a whip. With the proper technique, Katsumi flings this whip around, and through recording of a high-speed camera, they take a look at it slowed down, seeing that the shock waves do indeed indicate that it hit Mach speed. Katsumi demonstrates his Mach punch, saying that by using all 10 of the joints from his toe up to his wrist, that's the technique that you would have to use in order to surpass this speed. But with those 10 joints, each joint would have to move at over 60 miles an hour, compounded on top of each other, in order to reach Mach speed, which is over 760 miles an hour. Katsumi doesn't see it as possible, unless you use all the joints made up in your spine. He explains that the backbone has 31 joints, in which 17 of them can be accelerated near simultaneously, boosting the amount of joints from the toe to the fist up from 10 to 27. And using that, Katsumi's Mach punch breaks Mach speed. As he demonstrates it, Retsu is impressed once again, but they both know that against Pickle, that punch won't be enough. They're talking about how to evolve the punch even further when Katsumi brings up the idea of using your head combined with the 3 joints in your finger to possibly add more weight and speed to it, in which that would create the perfect move, as Retsu is impressed with Katsumi's mind. Apparently, Katsumi has this name of the lethal weapon, Retsu believes that he's living up to it. They continue to conversate about how to advance the punch, and funny enough, even a little bit of Dappo's backstory about him adopting Katsumi from the circus. That's a crazy place to get a kid from, but turns out that wasn't even true. I don't know where Katsumi came from, but he was adopted by Dappo, but the whole circus story was just folk tales told around China. But interrupting their conversation, Kaku just laughs. Retsu had just contacted him not too long ago, and he can't believe that he showed up from China this quickly. Retsu introduces him to Katsumi, as he explains that Kaku is the master of Kung Fu. Kaku had heard Katsumi talk about the perfect move, but he wonders if any move can truly be called perfect. If there was in this scenario, it wouldn't be what Katsumi explained, but what Kaku is about to show them now. They pull out this egg taped to this string, and Kaku demonstrates the perfect move. He steps forward, and we can't even see his arm budge. Just a slice of air cleanly cutting the lower section of the egg as it falls out, while keeping the top half of the shell completely intact. Both Katsumi and Retsu are amazed, as Kaku says that if you truly want to accelerate the move, then you can add an infinite number of joints throughout your body. In reality, there's a limited number, but you can add as many as you want through the power of imagination. Kaku had broken down how he used his imagination to conjure up all of these joints from just his shoulder to his fingertip. That's how he was able to use it to go beyond what's normally humanly possible. The truth doesn't lie in reality, but imagination. As Katsumi tries to practice this, he's struggling over and over, thinking that it's ridiculous to try and use imagination to trump the real world. There's no way he could buy into that. But his mind wanders onto the egg itself. He asks why eggs have shells. So the answer is pretty simple. The shells are there to protect the fragile inside of the egg. And upon realizing this, Katsumi catches something. The egg wanted the shell in order to protect itself, so it was created from nothing. Just as animals who wish to eat leaves up on trees must alter their own body in order to do so, where giraffes stretched their necks longer than what they thought was possible, and elephants did the same with their trunk. All of these animals are making these evolutions and incredible changes in order to survive. In comparison with what they do, this modification that he wants for battle is near nothing. He's forcing his imagination to take over, and finally, he gets it. Dappo, Retsu, and Kaku are having tea as Dappo appreciates Kaku coming out in order to help his son. Kaku recalls that Retsu had once beat Katsumi in a single punch, and while that may be true, Retsu admits that he's grown far since then. It's been a few days since Kaku has first showed up in Japan, and he's already sensed the potential in Katsumi, as he shared that by now, in just a few short days, he's not only mastered, but surpassed that punch that Kaku would introduce to him. Still, in that same room in which we saw him start, Katsumi loosens every single bone in his body, imagining all of his joints broken into 4, 5, or 6 more of them. His body, from the toe to the fingertip, goes from the 27 joints that he had seen in reality to hundreds of them. He's trembling at the thought of letting a punch like this loose, but nonetheless, with all of his might, he throws out this new and reformed Mach punch. Katsumi's punch shatters all of the windows around him, causing this rupturing sound throughout the entire city. Everybody rushes to the scene as Katsumi explains that he's finally done it. He's mastered a killer move. Over with Baki, not even in the city, we see Baki walking with Rumina, as he's shocked by the sound of that punch. He's here with Rumina because he's about to go into a spar, and as Gary pulls up out of nowhere, he hears about this spar, but he doesn't see Baki's opponent. Though, of course, we know that Baki's here to conjure up his opponent through imagination. He tells the two of them to back up, as in preparation for fighting Pickle, Baki plans to conquer one of his natural enemies from hundreds of millions of years ago. He's going into a fight with this dinosaur. The next view we get is of Katsumi, and he's quickly making his way to fight with Pickle. Overlapping in the background, we hear this conversation between him and Tokugawa. They're talking about what Katsumi needs to do in order to be allowed in the ring with them. Firstly, before anything, Katsumi has to be aware of what the results could be. If he loses this, then he'll be Pickle's food, as Katsumi is of course fine with that. Tokugawa has 2 criteria for this fight. First, he says it has to be held at 6 o'clock in the morning, and second, instead of it being in the underground fight arena where Retsu fought him, it's to be held at the baseball stadium. As we see Katsumi on his way there, he wonders if he, Katsumi Orochi, is really going to be the one to take down Pickle. As he makes it to the front, he sees Tokugawa standing outside the entrance next to somebody he didn't expect. Tokugawa is standing next to Katsumi's mother. Dappo had let her know that he was going to be fighting today, so she wanted to come and show him support. She tells Katsumi that she invited somebody on his behalf, knowing that this person is the most important person to him in the world. He just calls her foolish, saying that no matter who she invited, they could never be as important to him as she is. She is his one and only mother. She tears up, but shortly after, she makes her leave. As much as she loves Katsumi and wants to support him, she can't sit there and watch him fight in such a grueling match. Katsumi isn't upset about it, he fully understands. When from the side, just after Katsumi's mother had left, he sees and recognizes who she had invited. To him, it makes complete sense. This is the only person that she would have brought here, saying that it's the most important person to him in the world. This lady walks up and we get context that this is Katsumi's birth mother. Now remember, Katsumi was adopted by Dappo and Natsue, the woman who just showed up. I was curious as to what his relationship was with his birth parents, as he had just called Natsue his one and only mother. But this dude Katsumi sits here and gives her that exact same hug that he gave Natsue, saying that this lady here is his one and only mother. He low-key wrong for that, but at the same time, I get what he's saying. He was adopted when he was only 5 years old because of an incident that happened with his father and his mother was grieving, so Natsue and Dappo had adopted him. Natsue was the mother that raised him for a majority of his life, and nobody can replace that. But at the same time, he only has one birth mother and nobody could replace her neither. He has 2 mothers that both play their own unique role, so I get what he's saying. Fully dressed, Katsumi is prepared to go into the fight. As he's walking out to the field, he's thinking about how lucky he is to have his parents and the people around him. But in the middle of his train of thought, he sees blood on the floor and the wall. Standing there is none other than Baki. I have no idea what happened here. I can only assume that he just got finished training because he tells Katsumi that he's shocked Katsumi is going to get the chance to fight Pickle before Baki can. And as he walks past him, he runs into his father. Dappo just tells him to not go and mess things up. As judging by how they're lined up, I'm assuming that if Katsumi fails, then Dappo is next up to fight. And then if Dappo fails, then Baki will. After hearing from his father, Katsumi is more motivated than ever to go on into the ring. As he steps out of the tunnel, he's met with thousands of karate practitioners shouting in his support. Every single Shinshinkai member in Tokyo had met there in order to inspire and support their leader. We see everybody in the crowd, even Retsu and Kaku, as Katsumi can now feel the expectation that's been put onto him. Katsumi walks up and immediately everybody stops. He knows that Pickle is waiting past his door, and the second that it's open, he's overwhelmed by Pickle's giant stature. He leaps forward, ready to attack, but Katsumi meets him with 5 perfect punches, landing in the jaw, the chest, ribs, groin, and thigh. Pickle powers through it, but Katsumi hits him with yet another strike to the groin, and then a knee once again to his jaw. Tokugawa and Baki, who joined the crowd, can just tell how much Katsumi has grown since they've last seen him. But Pickle, even after 7 clean consecutive attacks, just smiles. Physically, Pickle is way too dominant in order to be affected by simple attacks like this, as he responds with a kick, sending Katsumi flying face first into the ground. He wasn't sure what to expect, but it feels as if he got hit by a truck just from that one attack from Pickle. But he's not giving up then. Even though he was able to successfully block it, he admits that he still took damage from it. That's just how amazing Pickle is. But using the body that his birth parents gave him, the skills that Dappo taught him, and the will from Natsue, he'll stand back up. Since Katsumi stood back on his feet, Pickle decides to lock in, understanding that Katsumi isn't a toy, but an enemy. He gets into formation to attack. While in the crowd, Baki recognizes that this is the same exact stance that his father uses. As they approach each other, Katsumi smoothly steps under Pickle's attack and unleashes his new mastered punch. He hits Pickle right there in his core as one single image flashes through Pickle's mind. He's reminded of his strongest opponent from back in his time, the T-Rex. It feels as if he was just attacked by a T-Rex's tail, and as Katsumi pulls back, Pickle falls to the ground. He's never felt pain like this. It surpasses anything that he's gotten attacked by before. Katsumi had landed his punch at Mach speed, but there's one drawback that he wasn't expecting. A punch at Mach speed also destroys your fist. Looking at Katsumi's hand, everybody can notice that his left fist is done for. He had managed to knock Pickle down, something that nobody has been able to do, but at the cost of his fist, the most important thing to a fighter. He had given up his left hand, but that wasn't enough to keep Pickle down. And even though he wasn't defeated and he had to give up so much, Katsumi wasn't upset at all. If anything, he was ecstatic, as now every move he would make would follow this new methodology that he had learned. He follows up with a kick and then another punch, knocking Pickle right back down to the ground. The crowd erupts once again, but of course, he's got to deal with the consequences. Now his foot, alongside both of his hands, are completely destroyed, and Baki realizes that this is the price you've got to pay in order to knock somebody like Pickle down. Tokugawa can't believe how tough and resilient Pickle's body is, but Professor Payne, who's also in the crowd, gives some explanation that it's not Pickle's body that destroyed Katsumi's hands, but it was the air. When breaking the sound barrier with his punch, it was met with increasing amounts of resistance the faster he went. Even with technology that was built for this type of resistance in mind, it still struggles to withhold it. So with something like the human body, which wasn't made to be this fast, it stands no chance. Katsumi's fists were completely destroyed before it ever even touched Pickle, and because of that, Pickle is already recovering. Ironically, the attacker was brought to his knees as the one being attacked is looking down on him. Baki admits that it's bittersweet because he knows that Katsumi hasn't made any mistakes, and the outcome looks so grim. Professor Payne says that Katsumi was doomed from the start. While these martial artists are stronger than he ever would have imagined, Pickle's natural enemies weigh over 100 times more than a regular human. Just in terms of how they match up through size, it doesn't make sense that Pickle could ever lose. But down on the field, Katsumi hasn't lost faith. He knows that his hands are destroyed, but he has one last trick up his sleeve. Katsumi stands up, and neither Retsu nor Kaku can believe it. Even with only one arm remaining, he's going to continue fighting. We get a little bit of a peek into Katsumi's mindset, saying that up until now, he's thought only about striking his opponents to deal damage. Through his years of practice of technique, that was his only way of offense. But recently, he's developed this new technique, which turns out to be his most powerful one yet, a move that only he can do. He's reimagined his bone structure in order to allow his arm to become a whip, and flinging it, he reaches speeds that no man has ever met before. He attacks Pickle, sending him flying back, as blood fills the crowd. The narrator explains the mechanics behind the attack with a whip. It's not the fling, but the moment that the whip snatches back is when it crosses supersonic speeds, as that was the method that Katsumi used to hit Pickle, but of course, he had to pay the price. As Katsumi lifts his arm up, everybody in the crowd can see that his flesh had been completely ripped off. This was the results at going at speeds never gone before by anybody. He takes his black belt off in order to tie it around his arm as he walks up to Pickle, lifting this destroyed arm up in the air. After giving it his all against this prehistoric man from hundreds of millions of years ago, Katsumi stands victorious. The crowd erupts as Kaku admits that Katsumi, in just a short few days, has advanced the martial arts by half a century. The crowd begins to do their chants that they were doing when he first walked in, but as Katsumi bows his head in appreciation, he notices something. Pickle turns over as he wasn't knocked out, but he fell asleep. Nobody in the crowd can tell, except for Katsumi down in the field and Professor Payne. He explains to Baki and Tokugawa that in Pickle's brain, the fight is already over. Seeing that Katsumi lost his arm like this, he has no reason to continue attacking. It'd just be a waste. He'll just sleep until naturally Katsumi stops breathing. There, sleeping on the ground, he begins to tear up as Katsumi recognizes that Tokugawa had told him about this. Pickle cries for his food because those are the only enemies that he can truly love. He feels nothing but admiration for these enemies that approach him that eventually become his food. It's a part of his pride as a fighter from this Jurassic era. With these tears, he's signified Katsumi as a worthy opponent, and as a result of that, Katsumi cries as well. As Pickle stands over Katsumi, nobody wants to see what's about to happen next. Katsumi just tells Pickle that he's had his fun, and right then and there, he tells Pickle to take his life. The crowd screams out, but just like that, Pickle starts with Katsumi's arm. He's crying intensely as he does this, and the light begins to fade from Katsumi's eye. He knew that going into this fight, he wouldn't come out alive, but he's proud that he fought with everything that he had. He falls to the ground, hoping that Pickle doesn't leave anything left. He doesn't want him to just eat his legs or only his arm or only his head. For winning this fight, he deserves it all. Pickle walks back up to him, but in the crowd, Tokugawa can't bear to see this happen. He raises his arm in the air as all of these different shooters hidden in the crowd stand up. Tokugawa just tells everybody to forgive him for disrupting the match, but interrupting him is Dappo. He instructs Tokugawa to tell everybody to put the guns down. If Tokugawa let that happen, it would bring nothing but shame to his son. Dappo knows that Katsumi's life is on the line, but he was the one who willingly stood up there in the first place. Neither Dappo nor Tokugawa have any say in how this fight ends. The promise made between the two of them must be seen out no matter what. He's preventing Katsumi from feeling that shame that Retsu had felt after his fight, but in the crowd, everybody notices something down in the stadium. Pickle is sitting in front of Katsumi with his hands put together. The narrator gives some context about this universal action. When faced in front of something that a human can't control, putting your hands together is the most natural response. Though Pickle is a savage beast, he's still human. He may have fought Katsumi to the death, but he was still his friend. The cycle of being challenged, fighting, winning, and then eating was his life back in those primitive times. And when challenged by this enemy, who was far smaller than any of his previous opponents, his attacks were just as, if not even more, mighty. They didn't speak the same language, but Pickle clearly understood the sacrifice that Katsumi had made in order to train himself and his body up to this level. He understands the sacrifice that he made coming into this fight. Pickle understood and valued all of these things without exchanging a single word with Katsumi. And for the first time in a fight, he voluntarily leaves on an empty stomach. For whatever reason, even without eating, his stomach felt this sense of satisfaction. As the medics are carrying Katsumi off the field, they look into the stands and are shocked to see that it's completely empty. This stadium, once filled with over 50,000 people, now had no trace of anybody ever being there. But in reality, everybody was still there. Without any instruction or word from their leaders, all of them kneeled to the ground, not being able to stomach looking down on their leader after such a respectable fight. As the body was carried up to Dappo, Baki, and Tokugawa, Baki regrets the comments that he had said earlier. When he had told him that he never thought Katsumi would be able to go before him, it had a little bit of this salty undertone saying that Katsumi didn't deserve to go before Baki, but in reality, that comment was made out of jealousy. After seeing the fight that Katsumi fought, Baki respects him that much more, and Dappo, looking at his one and only son, sees the growth that Katsumi has made and is amazed with the change that he brought upon himself. Down in the underground arena, after said fight, Pickle just cries out. In the hospital, Katsumi is all patched up as he's being visited by Retsu. He had put together this tea for him to have, as Retsu explains that he's envious of Katsumi in his fight. Katsumi knows well that that may be the very best fight that he'll ever fight in his life, but of course, he didn't get to this point all on his own. Retsu and Kaku had helped him directly, but also the hundreds and thousands of fighters across the centuries had tirelessly evolved the martial arts to become what it is now. He simply embodied that in this specific fight. Truthfully, he's grateful for all of them. Opening the door, Baki walks in, holding this bouquet of flowers. He tells Katsumi straight up that even though it was a great fight, he still lost. Retsu is about to press him, but Katsumi stops him, saying that it's true. Even though he fought his best fight possible, at the end of the day, he lost. He asks Baki one simple question: can you pick up where I left off? Baki crushes the flowers, squeezing the petals into his hand, creating this singular drop of juice, rubbing it in his palms and putting his hands up to Katsumi's cheeks, saying that he will. Elsewhere, another Hanma was the center of attention. Yujiro is walking through the city, and even though nobody knew who he was, they all froze in fear, like a gazelle running into a cheetah in the wild. They don't know how they ended up in this position, but instinctively, the only choice to make was to stand there and watch. Walking up to him is Dappo, who invites Yujiro to a nearby bar. Wanting to speak about Katsumi, Dappo calls back to when he believes this growth had suddenly started. It was when Yujiro had called him out in front of everybody when they had went to go see Pickle for the first time. He had told Katsumi that nobody liked being around him. Not him, Baki, or even his father. It was a harsh thing to say, especially when his dad was right there in front of him, but it was a necessary moment for his growth. With the drink in front of him, Yujiro slams the table, launching it up into the air, catching it and drinking it, as he tells Dappo that even a tame cat can grow into a lion. But he wants to make one thing clear: this was all Dappo's fault. But Dappo admits that he's right. He says he was way too lenient on Katsumi, and even though he teaches otherwise in his martial arts, he doesn't embody that himself. Dappo knows that he needed to and needs to continue to be better. Yujiro asks the bartender for this bottle of whiskey, and as he takes it, he flips it, rips the bottom off, and pours it into a mug, downing the entire thing in one gulp. The bartender doesn't know what he's looking at, but they move on to the topic of Pickle, this 200 million year old fighter, as he asks Dappo what he thinks about it. Dappo gets a pen and paper, calculating the odds that they would get a chance to fight a warrior from so long ago, as it's about 1 in 3.8 million. Mathematically, there's essentially a 0% chance for these things to have lined up, but the reality exists right now. They have the opportunity to determine who's the strongest in history. Back to Baki, we see him in his basement as he's trying to shadowbox this image of Pickle in his brain, but he can't even conjure it up in the first place. He has Pickle ingrained in his head. Baki studied every aspect of Pickle, but still, his shadow can't be captured, which just proves to show how amazing Pickle really is. Popping up out of nowhere is Retsu, as he pulled up to check on Baki. Baki asks Retsu what Pickle's like, as he answers him that neither him nor Katsumi really can even tell. And just hearing this, Baki begins to laugh hysterically. Not even the people who fought him face to face could bring out Pickle's full strength. And at this point, he can barely contain himself. He's thinking about getting the opportunity to fight against somebody like that. Hearing Baki talk like this, Retsu is stunned, but Baki just continues to laugh. Retsu can tell that Baki's ready to get into the ring, so he just says they should contact Tokugawa first thing in the morning. But Baki doesn't like the sound of that. He says that he's gonna go and confront Pickle face to face. Retsu is at a loss for words, as thinking to himself, he knows that Baki probably doesn't want to hear this, but looking at him right now, he's reminded of his father. Retsu had got the feeling that he was talking to Yujiro himself. Down at the underground arena, we see all of the protective measures to hold in Pickle being broken through, but it wasn't Pickle that had escaped, but somebody had broke their way in, itching for a fight. We see that it's not Baki, but the other son of Yujiro, Jack Hanma. Staring Pickle down, he knows that they don't speak the same language, but Pickle clearly understands his intentions. Him and Jack are about to go at it. Pickle just thinks about this arena that he's in, being grateful that he's found such a place. As long as he stays here, wonderful things tend to happen. First, he ran into Retsu, and then Katsumi, and now a brand new quote-unquote toy has walked right up to him. He can tell that Jack is different than the other two, getting the feeling that Jack will be much more direct. He runs up and hits Pickle with a clean right. He's not using any martial arts or technique, just raw strength. Even after a head-on attack from Jack, Pickle didn't budge, and Jack had expected such. He knew that Pickle is as sturdy as they come. He's not just a regular human. A punch directly in the face didn't even have any effect on Pickle's brain, but that's not what he's worried about. He's more interested in Pickle's teeth. He's amazed that even through a direct punch, his teeth hasn't budged an inch. Conveniently, Jack says he's quite proud in the strength of his bite, as he's developed it to the point where apparently he can bite a coconut into shreds. He takes pride in his bite as he knows that Pickle's is on another level as well. So he challenges Pickle to a bite-off. Pickle clearly understands this as well. The two most powerful bites, one of the Jurassic era and two of the modern era, bolt towards each other, ready to clash. We cut over to Baki's place as he's calling Tokugawa about wanting to fight Pickle first thing in the morning. But Tokugawa is at the underground fight arena watching them two go at it. As they're fighting, this looks crazy, bro. This gotta be the nastiest thing I've seen out of the show so far. I could have gone my entire life without seeing this sight, and I would have been perfectly fine. I would blur it, but hey, if I gotta see it, you do too. On the phone, Tokugawa calls Baki a fool. His request was far too late. Pickle lifts him up in the air and starts twirling him around over and over again, throwing them off to the side. As back at Baki's house, he can't believe that his brother got there before him. Jack was thrown right to the entrance where he came from, as Pickle has taken a chunk off of Jack's face. Rightfully so, he's pissed, but Tokugawa can tell he's not giving up. Pickle walked up to him, but Jack retaliates with a lightning fast punch, sending Pickle flying into the stand. Judging from how that punch felt, Jack is once again reminded of the difference between Pickle and a modern human. Across his time fighting, he's broken many jaws, but no punch has ever felt like that. Pickle's jaw felt like it weighed 500 pounds on its own, knowing that even a full power punch from Jack didn't affect his brain in the slightest. Tokugawa is going crazy in the crowd, but watching the entire time was Professor Payne. He tells him that now is not the time to be amazed, as looking in the ring, Pickle is in formation for his direct attack, that same one that he used versus Retsu. While that punch didn't do real damage to Pickle, it definitely got him going. And knowing that Pickle is gonna attack him straight on, Jack isn't gonna run. Sprinting towards the ring, Baki and Retsu had rushed over to witness the fight as they get there just in time for this final clash. Pickle had went all out towards him, but now Jack stands alone in the ring, as by putting his hands into this weird formation, I don't know, he's deflected Pickle, diverting him up into the stand. You could tell he used all of his strength because of how his muscles are all tweaking and twitching, but Pickle is already standing back up. Jack meets him up in the stands to begin bashing his head in repeatedly, over and over and over, as he tosses Pickle right back down to the ground, continuing his assault. Jack sees this as a representation of everything that he sacrificed to evolve as a human. He had given up on all of life's luxuries in order to acquire strength. He went through relentless hours of practice, took on countless numbers of drugs, and even went to using bone lengthening procedures, all to become as strong as possible. Now, he represents the pinnacle of a modern human, enhanced to the max amount. He bites Pickle's ear and rips it off, spitting it out and kicking it into Pickle's face. This is the most damage that Pickle has ever taken, and honestly, he's just stunned. As his ear lands back in his hand, he knew that this was a part of his body. Not because he recognized it, as he's never looked into a mirror before, but Pickle made the connection through the pain. This immense pain on the left side of his head was one completely foreign to him. The arena was silent, but the silence from his right ear and the silence from his left were vastly different. Finally, he comes to the realization that Jack had taken something from him, and for the first time, he feels hatred. He runs up on him and Jack sends an all-out punch, but after this loud sound, he realizes that somehow he missed. A bunch of dust is flying out of nowhere and he has no clue what happened. Pickle must have dodged it, but somehow he's still standing here in place. He's trying to piece everything together when he goes for another attack, but the same thing happens. Pickle hasn't moved at all, but Jack was 100% sure that he swept his feet from under him. But in the crowd, the spectators saw it clearly. While it took a minute for Jack to notice, once he saw the busted walls at the edge of the arena, it all makes sense to him. He threw his all-out punch as fast and as strong as possible, assuming that Pickle wouldn't have been able to dodge. But in reality, he jumped like 20-30 feet back, using the wall as a spring, and bounced right back into position to look tough in front of Jack's face. And the worst part is, he never saw a thing. Jack is more hot than ever. This was the speed that Pickle used to dominate against the dinosaurs of his time. He had the physical strength to match up with them, but the speed is what set him apart. No dinosaur was as agile and could move as well as he could. Going for the next attack, we hear a lot of thoughts running through Jack's head, but the most prominent of them all is him begging God to allow him to win this. He's never asked him for anything up until now, but Pickle lands his attack. He hits him with a right uppercut, following with the left, and just before he hits the ground, he hits him with another left and then another right. 4 punches back to back to back to back, sending him crashing into the wall. And just with that short sequence, Jack had been defeated. Pickle raises his arm into the air and dances in celebration, literally emoting on Jack after whooping his ass. I guess it was just natural instinct, because realizing that his opponent is done for, Pickle begins to cry, signifying that Jack was indeed strong, just as he cried for Retsu and as he cried for Katsumi. Tokugawa can't believe that 3 men who he respected so highly, being those 3 that Pickle defeated, were all destroyed so easily. And Pickle walks up to finish the job and eat his prey. Suddenly, he hears this buzzing noise and gets a vision of this bee in Jack's shadow. Instantly, instead of eating Jack, he just turns around, walking off. The narrator gives us some context that a very long time ago, when Pickle was still a child, he encountered his very first enemy that was smaller than him. He struggled, but after some time, he was finally able to kill it. And as he took it apart and ate it, a shock had spread through the inside of his mouth. This was a sensation that he never felt before, almost as if a volcano had erupted. Pickle was completely helpless against this type of attack, as only one thing was engraved in his mind. Even after being killed, some opponents don't die. And that was the same sensation that he felt from Jack. Tokugawa wonders why Pickle was so afraid. I mean, clearly Jack is unconscious. No matter how tough of an opponent he was, he can't attack while in this state. But as he goes up to touch Jack to see if he's really unconscious or if he's just faking it, Baki warns him to stop. Tokugawa just lays his hand on Jack's chest as, out of instinct, he attacks. Jack hadn't regained consciousness yet, but this attack was programmed within his body. Baki realized that if Pickle had tried to continue and eat Jack, his 2 middle fingers would have likely pierced right through the side of his head, instantly reversing the results of the fight. The narrator explains that this attack was engraved into Jack by pure will. While even being unconscious, with his 2 middle fingers, Jack could administer the world's most powerful fuck you. The next view we get is of Jack being treated by Kiriha. He's in a pretty critical condition, but at the end of the day, he says that Jack should be fine. As Kiriha sits down with Professor Payne and Tokugawa, he explains that Jack is lucky that his body is as in good shape as it is. Otherwise, things could have turned out much worse. Tokugawa asks him about the attack that Jack did while being unconscious, and Kiriha says it's definitely possible. Even after a human loses consciousness or even loses their life, they can still take action. He tells a story about this ancient war. One squadron and their leader was captured by the enemy and sentenced to death, but the commanding officer made a proposal to the enemy. He asked them to let free any soldier that he can run past while holding his own head. The soldiers just laughed at such a ridiculous request, but sure enough, after he was killed, he ran down the entire line, saving the rest of his men. Kiriha explains that this dedication to save his troops is on the level of Jack's dedication to gaining strength. Him sending such a powerful attack after being unconscious isn't out the realm of possibility. He very much could have ingrained into every cell of his body that even after defeat, he would still find a way to win. Suddenly, the nurse bursts through the door, telling them that Jack is gone, and Kiriha isn't even surprised. Back at the underground fight arena, Jack shows up, apologizing to Pickle for leaving in the middle of their fight. He sends a kick right there to Pickle's face, starting to fight back up right then and there. Jack kicks this man 5 times in a row as Pickle begins to run. The narrator chimes in, saying that Pickle hadn't actually taken that much damage. While Jack was powerful, Pickle is used to attacks from people that weighed 10 if not 100 times his weight. So the reason he was running wasn't out of fear of being killed, but it was the fear of facing a man who wouldn't die even after death. Throughout all of his battles, death was the final outcome. If Pickle could kill his enemy, then he won and it was over. But with Jack, it was different. Jack is walking this man down outside of the arena, and his Pickle is just continuing to try and flee. But after a few minutes of this, his pride takes over. Pickle is a proud fighter, an undefeated one at that, and that won't let him turn his back on his prey for this long. Pickle runs up, sending out an attack, making his man do 360s over and over and over before it finally crashed into the ground. The people around have no clue what's going on. But after this simple attack, Jack is unconscious once again. The narrator says for the second time in his life, Jack had lost twice in one day. I think it's significant that the narrator mentioned that once again, Jack had taken 2 losses in a day. I'm assuming that's a reference to the OG series and something that happened. I'm not sure yet. Once again, you gotta get around to it. Later in the day, Jack finally wakes back up in that same hospital that he was in this morning. Both Professor Payne and Tokugawa are telling him that's enough. He had went out and fought this historical treasure twice in a day, and they could tell he wants to go back for a 3rd time. But Jack completely ignores them. Jumping out of bed, he runs out into the hallway only to see his younger brother, Baki. This seems like the last person that Jack had wanted to see. You could tell he's already pissed. Baki is just telling him to give it up. He understands Jack's pain as a fighter, but enough is enough. He chooses to ignore Baki, but Baki just screams at him, telling him that he's washed. Jack doesn't know what Pickle did to him. We see that while Jack was unconscious, Pickle had carefully brought him up this building, making sure not to cause any more injury to him. He tied him up against his pole because he no longer saw Jack as an enemy, but as merely food. And after hearing this, Jack just screams. We cut over to a conversation between Tokugawa and Yujiro, as Baki has decided to wait in the underground arena for the right time to fight Pickle. They're just staring each other down over there, as Tokugawa thinks it's a problem that there are no spectators. He asks Yujiro if he thinks that Baki could really win. After all, Retsu, Katsumi, and Jack were all defeated, 3 fighters who are capable of defeating Baki. But Yujiro interrupts him, explaining that Baki has something that those other 3 don't. He has undeniable proof of the Hanma bloodline. Tokugawa's confused because Jack is literally his brother. He's got the same blood in him. But Yujiro explains that the Hanma blood runs thin inside of Jack. After all, he lost, and somebody with Yujiro's blood would never lose. Tokugawa is at a loss for words, witnessing Yujiro's pride and ego, asking him why he doesn't go fight Pickle himself. And upon hearing this, Yujiro just has this devious smile on his face, slamming the ground for some reason, and slicing through this panel of the floor. He says that Baki and Pickle were destined to fight each other, and the one left standing is going to be Yujiro's next prey. Baki, in the underground fight arena, realizes that Pickle isn't fighting him yet because he's not hungry. But after hearing a conversation between Professor Payne and Tokugawa, we learn that Pickle's food situation is already handled. Since Pickle killed that T-Rex, they're having him live off of it for the next couple of years, while his team of scientists is already working on genetically re-engineering the food so that Pickle will never go hungry again. While that's great for Pickle and his preservation as a historical artifact, it means that Baki will never get his chance to fight. In the ring, he realizes this when a team of scientists wheels in this chunk of T-Rex meat for Pickle to eat, as Pickle grabs it, starting to go to town. Baki can't believe what he's seeing, but Pickle just offers him some. And after insisting, Baki tries it, saying that actually, it's not that bad. We see Tokugawa having a different conversation with Hanayama, explaining that he had this little scuffle with Pickle out in the street. Tokugawa can't believe that he missed it, but Hanayama explains that Pickle is just like them. He's a proud fighter. Those two sitting in the ring will have to face each other eventually, regardless of whether Pickle's hungry or not. Back with Baki, he suddenly gets an idea. He walks up to Pickle and, standing right there between his legs, he slightly taps the side of his face. And even though Pickle knew Baki was just trying to provoke him, he couldn't help but be engulfed in rage. The narrator gives some context on this UFK fight between Lorian Grassi and Timo. Grassi was clearly the favorite, but Timo put up a shockingly good fight. And even though he lost, reporters asked him what the cause of this superhuman gain in strength was. Timo explains that Grassi had slapped his cheek very gently, with no malicious intent at all. It was so condescending and provoking that it brought out this next level of rage in him. Back in real time, Pickle pushes Baki all the way to the edge of the arena, as Baki, with nearly tears in his eyes, just thanks him. He knows that Pickle has evolved. For the first time in his life, he's not fighting for food, but solely to defend his pride. Retsu was already there watching from above, and he's joined by Tokugawa and Hanayama. They see that the strongest human of the Jurassic era is about to fight the esteemed Baki Hanma, and they have no clue what the result's gonna be. Baki's first attack was this roundhouse kick, and just with that, he's knocked Pickle down, already putting him on a different level than the other people who had fought him before. It took Katsumi sacrificing all of his limbs in order to knock Pickle down to the ground, and Baki just did it with one attack. They're confident that Baki is gonna show Pickle how fighting truly is. It's not an act of survival or a means to eat, but there's a real culture around it that he must understand. Pickle hasn't even gotten back up yet, but Baki attacks him again and again and again. As Baki grabs onto Pickle, putting him in this chokehold, they're starting to think that he's really gonna kill him, but in the ring, he knows that he doesn't have to go that far. They're having a fight, but not a fight to the death. He grabs onto Pickle as Pickle just escapes up into the air. He jumps all the way up to the nosebleeds, grabbing the guardrail as he falls back down to the floor. This drop is almost 100 feet, and everybody in the crowd knows that this can't end well. As they slam into the floor, somehow, after the cloud of dust clears, both Baki and Pickle are still on their feet. The three spectators can understand Pickle surviving that fall, but they're shocked with how much tougher Baki is than they had originally thought. Though in the ring, we can see that Baki has this lack of presence in his eyes as Pickle just slowly approaches. Tokugawa sees Pickle stepping in on him and begins to wonder if Baki has already lost consciousness. We don't know what Pickle's about to do, but as his hand gets close, Baki smacks it away. Hearing from Baki's point of view, he says that this is all he's capable of. The damage from falling from over 100 feet up in the air to Baki is similar to when he fell off the jungle gym when he was a little kid, or at that time that he fell off the swing. These comparisons are ridiculous, but he explains that his organs are all out of whack. His lungs are being crushed as he could barely get any fresh air. Blood begins getting pushed up his mouth, signifying organ damage, but he swallows it to not show any weakness to Pickle. In his head, he's shouting about how much he wants to fall to the ground and wince in pain, but he's committed to putting up a front that he's just fine. But unfortunately for Baki, Pickle can see right through his act. He knows that Baki has suffered some crazy damage, and Pickle feels nothing but regret. Baki is wondering why Pickle doesn't continue to fight. He doesn't want any pity from him, but Pickle is genuinely sad that he treated his toy too rough. He had played too hard. As he gets down on his knees, Pickle puts his hands together, praying that Baki heals, but Baki just smacks him away. He can barely deal with the humiliation of his opponent praying for his safety and his recovery. He could barely speak, and he knew that Pickle couldn't understand him, but with his broken voice, he just yells, "Don't you dare pray for me." He feels even more pain from forcing the words out, but Pickle just gets back up on his feet, finally ready to throw a punch. But as he does, it stops right in front of Baki's face as he lightly taps him on the cheek. At first, I thought this was payback for what Baki had did earlier to provoke him, but the reality was much worse. Retsu can't believe it, and Hanayama can't even bear to watch. Pickle is throwing these soft punches, just barely tapping Baki, showing him that his fists aren't dangerous. He's doing this to make Baki feel more safe while he's around him. Before, Baki's brain would react to these immense amounts of physical damage. That's how he got himself going. If you remember that fight versus Oliva, after taking a real punch from him, he was able to push himself to another level. But this time, his brain reacted in the complete opposite way. Pickle's punches had zero power behind them, but they hit Baki right where it hurt the most, his pride. Baki just walks off and out of the ring, as Hanayama can't believe what he's about to do. He stands on the railing and jumps right off, but this time when he lands, he's sitting perfectly on the ground. He flips up onto his feet, telling Pickle not to worry about him. At this point, Pickle's confused, and I am too. I don't know why he did that. Pickle knew that Baki was putting on an act. This was some type of camouflage, but normally camouflage was a means to survival. Baki going back up to re-inflict that same damage that had hurt him in the first place doesn't make any sense. No animal that he's ever run into would do something like that. Quickly, Baki throws a punch with his right and pulls back. Tokugawa's confused because he missed, but Baki continues, jumping up into the air and sending out a kick this time. He seems to have missed both attacks, just barely, but suddenly, Pickle falls straight to the ground. He quickly stands back up, but as he tries to walk, he falls once again. The spectators all look to Retsu in order to explain what's going on, as he says he's not 100% sure, but it looks like Baki, rather than just making a direct hit, just barely grazed Pickle's jaw. Since even a direct blow from Baki wouldn't phase Pickle's brain, and he knew that, an attack more focused on speed that barely just struck the skin of an unguarded jaw was enough to make Pickle's brain rattle back and forth. The first one sent Pickle's brain rattling, but the second one made it go even faster, as from Pickle's point of view, he's more confused than ever. He was simply standing like he always did when suddenly the ground rose up to his face. He really had no clue what was happening, as Baki, who was just on the brink of death, had seemingly transformed into this sorcerer who could move the ground. To be honest, Pickle was scared, but his pride wouldn't let him run. Against every enemy that he's faced, he was able to conquer it. No attack was enough to keep him down, and he grew confident because of that. Even arriving in this strange new time where everything was new to him, he was challenged and attacked by many different people in many different ways, but he withstood all of these challenges and overcame them. But this interaction with Baki was beyond his imagination. Pickle didn't know how to move the ground. He never even thought about trying to do that and wouldn't even know where to start. Even the most mighty of enemies from back in his time couldn't do that, but Baki could. In Baki's mind, he knows that he hasn't recovered enough to attack Pickle head on, so he opts in for his next best option. He completely loosens his body, walking up to him as Retsu is shocked, calling Baki a true genius. Retsu says that he should have thought of this whenever he went against Pickle. Baki just apologizes, saying that he's about to do something a little bit mean, as he turns around, spins back, and swings his arm, slapping Pickle right on his back. Pickle begins to scream in pain. Normally, he's so sturdy and tough that even the strongest attacks from these extremely strong martial artists wouldn't even phase him. But now, he can't even stand because of all the pain. Hanayama looks to Retsu once again for an explanation, as he explains that this is the whip strike, the type of attack that affects all humans regardless of how much you train. If y'all remember, Yanagi, back from the original arc with the 5 convicts, had used this strategy, and Baki had used it against him in order to take him out. Catching up on it a little bit, Retsu explains that as Baki loosened up his entire body, it strangely makes his arms and his legs increase in weight. The act of flinging them around and making an attack directly on the skin, which is the largest organ in the human body, will cause immense pain. Baki continues to slap Pickle with these whip strikes, as eventually Pickle is forced into a defensive pose for the first time in his life, and Baki is still staring him down. Now, after feeling such immense pain, it kicks Pickle into his own next gear, as he gets into position for his direct attack, that same one that he used to take out Retsu. Baki knows that against this, he can't whip strike anymore, so he shifts into a new stance, the stance of the tiger. Retsu is once again explaining this to the other two, since he knows all the more technical terms about the forms, stances, reasoning, all types of stuff. And Baki shifts from a tiger into an eagle, moving on to a mantis, then a monkey, then even a bear. Retsu can only describe this performance as masterful. Baki is seamlessly integrating all these different styles, one after another, but at the end of the day, Baki must remember that all of these animals that he's emulating would cower in fear when faced in front of Pickle. Unfortunately, even if he combined all of these together, he could never win. Baki just looks up into the air, raising his hands, as Retsu is having trouble deciphering what animal he's trying to emulate. He can tell that it's big, sturdy, and powerful. Maybe something like an elephant or a rhino, but not quite. Baki transforms into a triceratops. This makes Pickle extremely shocked because he can sense an enemy from back in the day. Baki, who wasn't even half of Pickle's size, is now giving off that same feeling as one of his most powerful rivals. But Baki quickly leaves that formation, moving into a pterodactyl and then a T-Rex. Pickle is literally shaking at this point. He has no clue what's going on. Baki, a man not even 6 feet tall, had gone from being on the verge of death to a combined form of all the strongest beasts that had ever roamed the earth. Pickle couldn't explain it as anything else other than magic. Pickle is, of course, shocked because he's never seen a monster like this. It has the teeth and tail of a T-Rex, the size and feet of a triceratops, and the wings and talons of a pterodactyl. All of this combined into one single animal. Individually, they were already a handful for Pickle, but seeing all 3 of them in front of him at once, his body is remembering the respect that each beast commanded from him. Baki rushes in and Pickle has no choice but to defend himself. Up in the stands, Retsu was impressed with how Baki's approaching this, but at the end of the day, he isn't these three monsters combined. He can imitate them and bring out that respect and fear, but he has no clue how Baki is going to carry out the actual execution of it. In the ring, Baki dashes in and imitates the T-Rex's bite by clamping onto Pickle's hands with both of his own and twisting. Pickle's brain substitutes it for an actual T-Rex bite. Due to his lack of experience in anything martial arts related, Pickle has no choice but to assume these attacks are just like the ones that he actually does know. So Baki is cleverly picking his attacks so that Pickle has to substitute it with something he can understand. Baki runs in with another attack, but this time Pickle has a response. He leaves the ground and jumps to the edge of the wall as the narrator gives us a little explainer. We see the origin behind the poses that sprinters use to achieve maximum speed. It was a question pondered for decades, with many runners trying many different forms. Over time, people figured out that the closer you can get to a horizontal position, the faster your launch would be. So sprinters use starters in order to get the body as close to horizontal as possible, but it still isn't a full 90-degree angle. Though today, one man has fully achieved that horizontal position as he launches off a wall. The narrator explains that it took less than 1 second for him to make contact with Baki. But before we can see the action, we get a post-game interview with Retsu. I don't know who we think he is, but he got these little shades on and he's giving his point of view of this interaction between Pickle and Baki. His first thought was that this must have been how Pickle approached his enemies back in the Jurassic era. Maybe it was off of a tree or a boulder, but that's how he was able to stop the attacks of these beasts that weighed tens of thousands of pounds. As far as Baki, he wondered how he was going to be able to take an attack that took out Retsu so easily. Retsu weighs 70 pounds more than Baki does, and Pickle is getting off to even a better launch point than he did versus Retsu. The interviewer asked Retsu how he was able to think of so many things in less than 1 second, calling him out to see if he was just making this stuff up. But Retsu gives the perfect example. He says it's like taking a delicious bite of rice with curry. You can taste the spiciness, the sweetness, the saltiness. You can sense the smell and the richness and the texture and how the flavor interacts with your taste buds. It takes longer to describe the taste in depth rather than it does to actually taste and experience it, although the thoughts happen instantly. Continuing his recap of the situation, Baki had stopped right in place. Instead of trying to dodge or get into formation to deflect, he takes this attack head on. But after Pickle goes through with it at full force, it was Baki who was left standing in the ring while Pickle flew right past him, crashing into the stand. Retsu says that all Baki had to do was flick his wrist and it sent Pickle flying. Hanayama wasn't impressed by what Baki did, but with Pickle instead, standing right back up after such a crazy crash like that. But Tokugawa wonders why he's not giving his props to Baki, who had actually thrown him out that way. Hanayama explains the physics behind the interaction. Essentially, the stronger something's forward power is, the easier it is to be deterred by forces from its sides. For example, when a gun is fired, the bullet usually doesn't go straight through, but it gets veered off in a path by the soft internal organs, causing it to exit in another place from where it entered. Retsu then explains this whole situation that it reminded him of from this famous fight back in 1964, Sonny Liston versus Cassius Clay, the heavyweight title match. This heavy right was thrown by Liston and it was delivered with so much power, but Clay was able to masterfully deflect it and throw Liston's shoulder out of socket. Some experts thought that it was Clay's power that dislocated Liston's shoulder, but in reality, Liston's own force worked against him. Suddenly, in the ring, after sending Pickle up into the stands, Baki begins to mark his territory. This is another act of provocation because he knows that Pickle feels very strongly about this place. This is where he's had all of his fights, aside from the Katsumi one. This is the only place he feels comfortable in this strange era of time that he's found himself in. Baki's actions work to a T. Pickle jumps down furious, as Baki says he's done with all the games. Both he and Pickle are humans. Instead of imitating other animals or other beasts, he wants to go at it man to man. Pickle just smashes Baki's entire body straight into the ground, as we hear some narration from Baki saying that he wanted to do this at least one time. He had to go fist to fist with Pickle himself. He's not even complaining about the pain, but is just amazed with the feel of it. As Pickle attacks once again, he starts spamming kicks on this dude, as Baki, by the end of it, has a crater dug around his body. As soon as he gets up, Pickle attacks again, launching him right up into the air. This is the third time in this one fight that he's been up here by the ceiling, as he starts fantasizing about these different potential fights with Pickle. He wonders how Oliva, with the best muscles on earth, would fight versus Pickle in a head-to-head match, because he knows Oliva's strength is on another level. He's thinking about Hanayama, being as straightforward of a personality as it gets. He knows that he will fight Pickle head-to-head as well. Finally, he thinks about his father, knowing that he's the real deal. He imagines what a fight between the two of them would end up like. But as he's back on the ground, he realizes what he's most interested in is how Baki, Hanma, would fight in this situation. As Pickle attacks again, Baki dodges. As continuing this narration, Baki says that for the past 18 years, he's lived to win. He's followed in the footsteps of the most powerful being on Earth in order to defeat him and avenge his mother. Baki knows that he feels hatred for Yujiro, but at the same time, he feels a sense of admiration. He admires Yujiro's strength. As a fighter, he's flawless. In a strange way, he trusts his father simply because he knows he's the strongest. He pictures himself fighting against those fists and dodging those kicks. If he could keep up with those, then Pickle shouldn't be a problem. Baki enters this ultra instinct-like flow, dodging Pickle's attacks by literally hairs. As punches continue, Baki's movements become more precise as the margin of error shrinks with each blow. Over time, it looks as if Baki isn't even fighting, but performing a dance. Pickle, after throwing all these attacks and not landing a single one, comes to this new realization about Baki's speed. He's seen speed from other animals in the water and on land and even through the sky, but he's never seen anything this fast. As he attacks, he tries to grab Baki and pin him down, but seemingly fades his throne. Pickle recalls a moment from his childhood when trying to catch this butterfly, he consistently failed over and over, even when he was sure that he had it. From then on, he understood that there were some beings that could travel through his body. We then hear a story about this karate master known as the father of karate. He claims that he's been attacked and charged many times throughout his life, but at the very last second of each attack, he would dodge them. One day, during practice, this karate master claims that he phased through his opponent. The act of circling his opponents over years and years and years had caused him to eliminate all unnecessary movement. As he began to phase through his opponent's attacks, and we see Baki do the same thing to Pickle in the ring. Pickle is confused, but up in the stands, Retsu can't believe the developments of Baki's skills. He wonders if he could do the same. If he, Retsu Kaio, could replicate Baki's skill. He's even thinking about Dappo, Shibukawa, and even his own teacher, Kaku. Not sure if any of them could do what Baki's doing right now. Pickle is unleashing attack after attack as Baki refuses to be hit by a single one of them. As suddenly, Baki finds himself right there at Pickle's feet. He's holding this imaginary sword as Baki attacks Pickle's weak spot. This dude punches Pickle straight in the nuts, bro. Even my stomach hurt just watching this. Pickle had been attacked here before by both Retsu and Katsumi, as the pain from both of those were engraved in his head. But this one was far worse than the both of those combined. He clenches his teeth and falls straight to the ground, starting to spin over and over and over. This looked crazy. And up in the stands, for some reason, as if he didn't have any, Tokugawa asked why a punch to the balls could cause so much pain. Out of all the explainers in this series, this has to be the craziest one. Retsu gives an in-depth explanation as to why the testicles are such an important vital organ and so prone to damage. While other organs like the stomach, the heart, the brain, they're all protected by muscles, fat, and bones. But the testicles need room and a cool temperature in order to produce sperm, which is why they separate from the body with nothing but a single layer of skin for protection. Retsu describes its importance and its vulnerability by comparing it to it being as if your heart was dangling between your legs, only protected by skin. Look at Tokugawa, absolutely terrified at the thought of it. In the ring, Baki looks down at Pickle as Tokugawa is thinking that it's over. But both Hanayama and Retsu have enough experience fighting to tell that Pickle's not done. They say that when you're attacked in your groin area, you make one of two decisions. Either you decide that you don't want to fight anymore and you just hope you can get away, or two, you get upset and swear right then and there that you'll get your payback. Pickle was a part of the latter. As getting up, he's foaming at the mouth, and Baki knows that the end of the fight is near. With Pickle staring him down, Baki noticed something along his skin, these puncture wounds. They look like wounds from a blade, but obviously they hadn't happened during this fight. Everyone in the crowd, alongside Baki, realized at the same time that the scars running across his front and his back could have only been caused by the teeth of a T-Rex. Pickle must have survived a ferocious attack, as in retaliation, the three of them, out of pure respect and with no communication between them, just applaud and give him praise. Pickle begins to move his joints around, which Retsu described as him going into full battle mode, his final form. Just look at how wild he looks in comparison to Baki. He doesn't even look human anymore. His body remembered those scars from before, which is why they're showing up now. Pickle, both mentally and physically, is at his peak. His durable body became even more durable, and his extreme strength became that much more extreme. Baki sees this and recognizes that Pickle's going all out, and he takes it as a compliment. While Retsu, thinking about humanity, realizes that humans have evolved in many ways as far as technology and knowledge, but in terms of the human body, they've lost a lot. As Pickle moves to attack, Baki says he's not going anywhere. He's gonna stick it out right here with Pickle. On the first blow, the punch lands, but Baki just slides off to the side. Pickle follows up with another strike, but Baki retaliates with a kick to his arms while staying right there in his space. Baki explains to Pickle that he simply matched Pickle's strength at a better angle. Pickle may have the superior physical strength, but skill and technique allows Baki to go beyond that. Martial arts has evolved over time, and even if Baki can't compare to Pickle in frame, strength, or stamina, he'll still win. Baki begins to outclass Pickle with the skills that he's worked so hard to obtain. He fought countless fights, endured intense training, and nourished himself to the best of his abilities. The arts of his eyes, feet, fists, and breath are not his own, but they're skills built upon for generations and passed down onto him. Baki recalls his history, as at the same time, he can imagine Pickle's history, seeing the enemies that he had to overcome in order to gain his strength, even including the more recent foes of Retsu, Katsumi, and Jack. They're all supporting Pickle through their battles as well. The spectators can't understand the developments that's happening, but they can all tell that this battle is coming to an end. Pickle sends out the attack as we see Baki processing it in slow motion. He's not sure what route he should take, but after reacting and talking to himself in third person, he's impressed with his own decisions. Baki decided not to block, but to dodge and retaliate using Pickle's own movements against him. Retsu still has this post-commentary segment. I thought this would have been done with by now, but he explains the counterattack. It uses the puncher's own strength against him, as Baki is using this technique to trade punches with Pickle. In Pickle's mind, he knows that he was the greatest of his era. Countless enemies challenged him, but he never lost. Though now, he's being cornered by Baki and pushed into the wall. He finally sees that his size isn't gonna win him this fight, as his face is filled with tears. Pickle tries to escape the torment that Baki's causing, but Baki, just as he promised, stays right there in Pickle's space, putting absolute hands on this man Pickle as he's trying to get away, but Baki isn't going anywhere. He's completely overwhelming Pickle with his martial arts as finally he kicks him to the ground. Victory was all but assured for Baki, but arrogantly, Baki makes a mistake. He walks up to Pickle with both fists extended, and instantly he knew this was an invitation to a battle of stamina. The narrator explains that Baki's decision was made purely out of greed. Instead of accepting the victory that he had earned through his martial arts, he recklessly challenged Pickle to win via stamina, as not long after, Pickle's physical superiority overwhelms Baki, completely destroying him. In the end, even after guaranteeing the victory, Baki was laid out on the ground while Pickle was the one left standing. Not really standing, but sitting. You get the point. Tokugawa asked the two fighters alongside him what they thought about what had just happened. As Retsu says, the answer is obvious. Pickle could have killed Baki. He's in no position to defend himself right now, so Pickle is the winner. But Hanayama thinks otherwise. He explains that it's generally known and accepted that the stronger fighter should win through his pure strength. Techniques are meant for the small to compete with the strong. Since Baki was able to corner Pickle and had only lost in a battle of stamina, he thinks Baki was the true victor. While Baki was carried away by medics, Pickle just stood up and left. As shortly after, we see that Baki, who was supposed to be getting treatment from the doctor, had left the hospital and met with his new friend. Walking up on Pickle, he was just sitting there up top this building, looking on at the view, as he could tell that Pickle was envisioning his landscape from back in his time. I never really thought about it, but it's low-key sad, as Pickle had lost everything that he ever knew. While he did find enemies to fight, which satisfied that proud fighter within him, I can't help but think that he longs for some type of familiarity in this strange time. Pretty randomly, across the world, we get to see a meeting going on in the middle of Washington, D.C., as it's a conversation between Yujiro Hanma and the brand new president, Barack Obama. They're having a meeting here because Obama's term has just started, and it's customary that every single president of the United States makes a peace treaty with Yujiro Hanma. He claims that he'll do his best to uphold a respectable relationship and stay out of Yujiro's personal life. Yujiro is tired of this whole spiel as he goes through it every 4 years. He's just done with it. And finally, with formalities out of the way, Ozma places this ball on the table. As the cloth around it unwraps, they see it's a lump of coal. Ozma claims that scientists theorize the pressure of 100,000 atmospheres would transform a coal into a diamond. He wants to test if Yujiro is really as strong as he claims. According to what he's heard, Yujiro should be more powerful than a nuclear weapon, so turning this coal into a diamond with his own bare hands shouldn't be a problem. This is Yujiro's first time meeting Ozma, but he says, "You're just like Bob." He takes the coal, crushing it, and cuts through the center of this glass table, as Ozma is at a complete loss for words. He never would have believed it if he didn't see it with his own 2 eyes, but truly, Yujiro is unreal. To end the arc, we see Pickle being captured and put to sleep, while Professor Payne talks with these people about what Pickle's fate should be. They're not sure if he could be integrated into human society, so their option is to return him to the salt mine. Payne says that returning him to the mines would only push the problem onto future generations. Since they discovered him and brought him back to life, it's on them to find a solution. Across the world, people in schools, workplaces, and restaurants all debated on what should happen to Pickle. Leaders of different nations gave their own speeches and discussions, and all types of debates were held, as eventually it went down to a vote. The first option was to put him back in a layer of salt. Out of about 1 billion ballots, 500,001,572 had voted to return Pickle to the mines. The other option was to integrate him into human society, which received 500,543 votes. The margin was slim, only a 1,000 vote difference, but the people voted to put him back in the mines. Payne was disappointed, but it went down to a vote, and this was the decision that was made, so he has no choice but to go along with it. Walking with Gary, Professor Payne talked about the foolishness of humanity. He feels bad for Pickle and ashamed that they won't be the ones to discover the secret behind him. It sucks, but they don't really have much of a choice. Suddenly, something slams into the ground, as we see this statue of the face of a dinosaur. Appearing on top of it is Pickle himself. This was a message from Pickle to Gary. He brought this as a gift for Gary fulfilling his promise to take him to a place where there were others like him. He never forgot that promise that they made when they first met. And just like that, as quick as he came, Pickle disappeared. He wasn't captured and taken down to the mines like the vote promised, but instead had vanished into the depths of Tokyo.